It is 5:45, so I will call to order the August 1st, 2024 meeting of the Hendersonville City Council. We begin our meeting with an silent invocation for people to pray or meditate as they choose, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll rise, please. Thank you. You'll join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, Thank you. We start with public comment and general public comment. This evening we have 3 people signed up, so would appreciate if you would limit your presentations to 3 to 4 minutes. We'll have you come to the microphone and give your name and address for the clerk's record, please. First is Sandra Williams.
I'm Sandra Williams, 309 Chadwick Avenue, Hendersonville, North Carolina. And I understand that the plan for the next 40 years is pretty much solid at this point, but I want to speak just to have my comments in the record, and it may or may not change somebody's mind, you know. Okay. Your review here of the 2045 comp plan related to land use, the plan covers over 300 pages and a great deal of information. I just want to talk about my concerns of Chadwick Avenue, where I live, and Greenville Highway, and the Brooklyn and Brooklyn Avenue, Brooklyn Balsam Road. If we take a look at the neighborhood proposed land use, you can see that single-family neighborhoods are being encroached on Chadwick and parts of Brooklyn and through Brookdale and the neighborhood nearby, the Greenville Highway. The changes went from yellow as family neighborhood living to an orange, which is multi-generational living, which will allow lots owned by family members to possibly be rezoned for condos and apartments, which is frightening. Our complex, our townhomes. The neighbors of Brookdale need to be aware that the entire block of Chadwick, from Garden Lane to the Greenville Highway, is proposed to be designated as a commercial mixed use, meaning that these single-family homes could become massive, towering apartment buildings or commercial buildings. On page 20, both Chadwick Avenue and Balsam Road are listed as connector roads instead of residential streets. The city setting stage for 2 neighborhoods to act as easy access for cars traveling between the Spartanburg Highway and the Greenville Highway. This is really sad because we are now a residential street. We've been a residential street for 100 years. And the problem with this is the traffic is already picked up through our neighborhood to the Spartanburg Highway. But if you make it call it a connector road, the traffic is going to be a real problem on the Spartanburg Highway. There is no light there to get out into the highway, and it's really a dangerous intersection with no way to get out into the traffic. A major concern is the 4 or 5-story 200-unit apartment block proposed in the floodplain next to Publix across from the Dollar Tree. Supposedly, the south exit of the complex will turn right. That means that hundreds of residents in these units will be turning right out of the complex and use the connector streets, Chadwick and Balsam, to get around to town. It's interesting that the plan has been approved, was approved by the planning board, and the council listed it in the plan, but it's not actually been accepted. So those are my concerns. The apartment complex that they're planning on building next to Publix is going to be built in a floodplain. And last January, the whole area flooded, Publix and Ingalls, including the areas in the entrance. So it's going to really cause a problem with traffic, and I'm concerned about safety of children on school buses and fire trucks getting through there. So, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Williams. Lynn Williams?
Madam Mayor, as Lynn is coming up, as Ms. Williams is coming up, just to let you know, we do have one person online that would like to speak as well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
I don't have enough hands. Which I might not even need this computer. I was hoping, sorry, Lynn Williams, Chadwick Avenue. I was hoping to show some pictures of the flooding of the area that my mother was talking about, but most of us probably remember it. There was a picture in the comp plan and it showed the whole area flooded out. So I do have those photos for anyone that wants to see. Yes, here today to speak about the comp plan and how I believe we need more time. Chadwick Avenue is historic, and where we are, that needs to be protected. And as you round the curb towards the Little Caesars, there's 200-year-old historic houses there that are put in the commercial zoning area. So I really think there needs to be a bit more strategic planning in that area. About the acoustic trail planning, it compares it to the Atlanta Beltway, but I mean, we're 17,000 people. Atlanta is how many millions of people? So, what does it look like to scale our development and conservation efforts to look like Hendersonville? And since we were here before at the public hearing, there's been changes to the map, and there hasn't been an opportunity for the public to speak again. And so ours changed from a whole zoning section to another zoning section, and I feel like this is too rushed, and we ask for more time. When you plot out a spine greenway, this really isn't thinking about wildlife. I don't see a wildlife study in here at all. Do you know where our foxes live? Do you know where our bears live? Do you know where our animals live? And where are they going to live within this comp plan? Because it is important to us. And so thinking that you can just have a spine and the animals are all going to run to that spine, that's just unfortunate for the wildlife because it's just not realistic. So we need to think about that. Once again, I ask for you to wait to vote until this majority of this body is actually elected by the people. Right now we have just the mayor who's been elected for this specific term. We are waiting on multiple plans. We're waiting on the strategic housing plan. We're waiting on the parks and green space plan. This is your promise to us. Why do we not have these promises first to be integrated into this plan? We need to just slow it down a little bit, get these plans, put them in. We're waiting on the county's 2010 agricultural comp plan. They're working on it right now. And the greatest loss of farmland is right where we're annexing. How are we going to preserve farmland and work with the county like your goals say? I don't see it on the land use map, and I think this is so critical for the unity of our county and city. There's 5 major character areas. The Blue Ridge Square Mall, I walked around there yesterday, spoke to the residents. None of them have an idea of what you guys are planning. When you had a single hotel, they came out in numbers. They had no idea you have 20 buildings going over there. When I looked at all the projects that have been approved for development, we have over 300 acres of farmland that have been lost in the past 3 years, just in the city alone. We cannot continue this trend. One point that my mother did speak about was in the comp plan, it shows completed development, and it already lists 715 Greenville Highway, which hasn't even been approved by the planning board or the city council. And when they went to the planning board last time, they canceled the day before because the entire area was flooded feet high, and you wouldn't have been able to get into the entrance or exits. So how can this plan be in this plan? It just makes no sense. And I can wrap up here. I wanted to think about what Mr. Pepper said when we were looking at putting in condos at 7th Avenue. And, when I look at 7th Avenue now and what you have planned, and when I look at Lenox Park and what you have planned, what I see is displacement and gentrification. Yes, there are some beautiful features there, but that's what I see for the residents on fixed income and the traditional families that have been there. I don't see a way that we're going to protect the people that live there. And so previously, Mr. Pepper spoke about, what were the previous mistakes we made during urban renewal. And his question is, how would this impact the neighborhoods? Would it be like the 70s? Do you remember? Look it up. And another feedback was just, yes, you got a lot of feedback going into the plan, but just the final feedback for the new maps. If we could just get a little more time, make sure the neighborhoods know what's going on. The neighborhoods I went to, no one had seen these plans or knew they were coming. Please give us more time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Casey Carrack?
Casey Kirak, Garden Lane. I'm new to North Carolina and within the past few years. I'm also new to the home, and I'm also emotional, so sorry if I get a little emotional. I'm new to the home that I just moved into with my boyfriend in 9 years. We are actually, upon moving in, we were like, maybe we can talk to the owner and see if we can eventually own this place ourselves, make it a forever home. Now, with all the rain, we have noticed a lot of flooding in our basement, and so we're addressing that with the landlord and getting all that sorted. We are very close to the location on the corner of on the corner of Greenville Highway and Chadwick. If that is to be built, the house will be unlivable. There will no longer be permeable soil for any of the rain to go, and all the cement will make it go all around, which is right off of Chadwick, right near Garden Lane. All of the flooding that will take place in this area that is residential, that is now being marked as commercial with the approval of 4-story high buildings, it will move us out, whether we like it or not, whether it's bought out or not, because it will get flooded out. It's literally, looking at the plans, it doesn't make any sense considering all the flooding that already does exist right around that corner, right near that House Heidelberg and the TD Bank. That, I don't know how these plans could even be made, knowing that that flooding already exists, and with general knowledge, just knowing that if those buildings were to be built, how the flooding would make a lot of these streets undrivable, especially the streets that would need to be used to funnel all of these people now living here through. So again, yes, the safety. I also care very much about wildlife and would love to speak on that, but I am really concerned about the flooding and the safety and the reality of these homes being able to stay there, and the people who live in them. I have a wonderful neighbor. She's almost 90 and she couldn't make it here tonight, but she really wanted me to come and speak on behalf of her. And where we live, it's like a sanctuary. I mean, we still have a bunch of white squirrels. We see foxes, bunnies. There's hummingbirds all over, hawks. I mean, that is their home. And taking away that, it would take the life out of the home, out of where we live. And yes, there's plenty of forestry and everything around for them to live in also, but that is not realistic for animals in the way that everything works. There's only enough room, just like there's only so much room for people in town. So again, I don't think that I also agree that this is being rushed and not thoroughly thought through. I am focused on the flooding. It is so unrealistic, and I don't believe that that's just an opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carrack. Okay, and someone is online wishing to speak?
Ken Fitch, you're unmuted.
Okay.
Ken Fitch, 1046 Patton Street. Sorry not to be there in person. About the comp plan. Echoing some of the previous comments, particularly disappointing is the limited attention to the environment, solely focusing instead on the green spine, water, wetlands, and floodplains. But what about the defining features of the mountains? We are a mountain town. And what about the gentle slopes, the foothills, the lush forests, and the unique biodiversity? And there's practically no consideration of wildlife habitat, pollinator fields. But the remnants of these natural components of a former ecosystem are now located in the orange multi-generational sectors of the land development map. But that is where parcels may then be subject to alteration of terrain and resource removal. But the most baffling omission or change of focus in the comp plan occurs in the future economic development plan, our ED plan, where there is no mention of tourism. Tourism historically has shaped the character of the city. Main Street, our economic engine, is dependent upon it, and taxpayers look to its tax revenues yearly to relieve their tax burden. However, the comp plan is perhaps consistent with this omission of tourism, in addition to its diminished environmental assets. There are new specifications surrounding Main Street for 64-foot high buildings, and some are proposing 70 feet. And oh, Steve Carricker, we need you now. And there's talk about new style architecture. And all this will not enhance the historic character of historic Hendersonville. However, we have been given perhaps the transformative economic mechanism for the 21st century, the Ecusta Trail, a destination that would bring travelers and their pocketbooks from hundreds of miles away to experience a picturesque linear park that showcases the beauty of the region, and that would reinvigorate Main Street and could establish Hendersonville as a historic small town gateway to this unique byway. But in the plan, the trail emerges as an amenity with micro retail and pop-ups and mixed-use development nodes with multi-story buildings, as we see in the drawings and the photographs of Greenville and Charlotte. But it is the folks from Charlotte and other similar urban areas who would be coming here to experience a place and condition different from where they came from, especially places with overdevelopment. We are a bit off track here, and some would want to blow the train whistle on this, but it is in some ways consistent with the plan and a vision in which tourism and its assets are diminished perhaps, and ceding perhaps to what some might call a suburban urban vision for the future. Now, ultimately, some will ask the question, does the plan really correspond to the public's vision for the future? Thousands of citizens responded to Allison's call with their goals for the future. Is the plan a match? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fitch. We will move on to the business for the evening. First is consideration of the agenda. Is there anything anyone would like to have added to or removed from this evening's agenda? Not. Motion to approve.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make the motion. I move that the City Council approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Not. Those in favor of approving the agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Ayes have it. We have our agenda. Consent agenda. Is there anything anyone would like to have moved from the consent agenda to the regular agenda so it can be discussed. If not, a motion to approve those items.
Madam Mayor, I move that City Council approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there any discussion? Not. Those in favor of approving the items on the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Ayes have it. Motion carries. We've got that. Right. We have several presentations this evening. First of all is our quarterly MVP recipients. Mr. Conant, you going to lead this off?
Yes, ma'am, I'll try to do my best. So I'm going to start with just so the public knows, on a quarterly basis, we recognize our teammates who've gone above and beyond the call of duty, who have excelled and really have done great things for our community. So that is what we're going to do tonight. So I'd like to, I don't know that is Randy, Randy Mellon here? I've seen Randy, he's not. Okay, Randy, I'm gonna read what he did and then we'll present. Randy works in our Public Works Department. Patton Park flooded on May 15th, 2024, after everyone had left for work for the day. Randy typically waters our hanging baskets at night, so we don't see him much. If you're out at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, he's watering our hanging baskets. So he finished up early that night and without being told, went to Patton Park during the night and started the process of scraping up all the silt that was left behind. This saved the Public Works Department valuable time the next morning and enabled our guys to still be able to complete their daily tasks. This is a great example of teamwork and taking initiative. So we'd like to thank Randy for a job well done and very impressive that he took that initiative. So thank you. And next we have Dion Mendoza and Brian Hensley. We had lunch together yesterday, so I don't think they're here. I'll read what Brian and Dion's on the way to Clemson, I think is where he's going today. So Brian and Dion had stopped at a residence earlier in the day while doing their environmental services route. Completing their route, they drove back past the home and happened to see the resident laying sideways on the ground. She said her wheelchair had fallen over and had been there for about 20 minutes. They made sure she was okay and helped her back into a wheelchair. Stayed with her until the EMTs arrived. So thank Dion and Brian for a job well done and going above and beyond. And then finally, Dylan Ward, Richard Ledford, Brian McCall, and Dawson Heatherly. See any of those folks in the room either? But these are our cowboys of the city. Big shout out to these cattle rustlers from the water department. This is from a citizen. My little cows had escaped and were grazing outside the pasture on the other side of the road. Before I even knew it, there was a problem. They were out of their trucks trying to solve the problem. Even after I became engaged, they stuck around, blocked the road, waving their arms and running around the neighbor's property, encouraging Ferdinand and Cinderella to go back home. So I'd like to congratulate Dylan, Richard, Brian, and Dawson for a job well done and wrangling the Ferdinand and Cinderella.
Well, I'm sorry they weren't here so we could thank them in person, but we do appreciate the work that they do, going above and beyond what's in their job description. All right, we have 2 interns who've been with us over the summer, had special projects, and they're going to make their presentations. Jacob, or Jay, or who wants
Jacob.
to introduce?
I think Jacob Olson is coming to the podium, and as Jacob comes forward, I'll just so the public, again, this is a tradition of the city. We hire interns this summer because the council has made it important to know that we provide education for future generations. It also helps us recruit the best and the brightest. And as part of their project each summer, they have to present before city council, because if they're going to work in local government, that's what we do, right? So I'll turn it over to young Jacob and let him make his presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Conant. So, Mayor Volk, members of council, other team members, citizens, I am honored to be up here tonight to present a summary of my internship working for the city of Hendersonville in the IT department. So actually, before we begin, I'd like to introduce myself a little better. My name is Jacob Olson. I'm currently studying computer science at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, and I have been interning for the city of Hendersonville for the past 3 months. So over the course of my internship, I have done a lot. I've learned a lot, specifically, in a lot of fields. This is just some of it. You should have seen the full list. But I would like you to pay special attention to the networking, cybersecurity, and working for local government sections, because these are fields I had zero experience in before starting my internship here. So, on top of my day-to-day tasks, which made up a bulk of my work, I was tasked with, excuse me. It's bothering me. I was tasked with working on these 4 projects. So these 4 projects, they didn't make up most of my time, but when I wasn't doing something else, I was working on these. And this slide does serve as an overview of the rest of the presentation, just so you know. So starting with the first one, item consolidation. So one of my first responsibilities as an intern with the city was organizing technology being stored in various buildings around the city. And once everything was organized, it became quite apparent the city was storing technology it wasn't using. So I received training on how to declare surplus on items, which Mr. Conant is well aware of. And I was also tasked with selling these items on GovDeals. So to declare surplus an item, first step in doing that is removing any city data from it. That's either factory resetting the device or physically ripping out the hard drive. Next is actually posting the item on GovDeals, but it doesn't stop there. Once the listing is created, it's my responsibility to manage the questions, the paperwork, the sales, the pickups associated with that. And that's to hold myself accountable. Where are these items going? Where is the city generating revenue? It's important to keep track of all that. So over the past 3 months, I've created 26 listings on GovDeals, comprised of 172 items, and generated about $2,200 for the city. And this is money that'll be going towards new technology. And there you can see a breakdown of what that $2,200 was comprised of. So on the other side of the same coin, inventory management. So inventorying devices the city is currently using. So for this, just record all the items in a spreadsheet was the first step. And this helps the city in a couple ways. It makes troubleshooting issues, so the IT department, easy. Because if an employee has a problem with their computer, I can use this spreadsheet to look up exactly what computer they have, exactly what specifications they had, and exactly how old that computer is. And it's necessary to create a replacement schedule for these devices. And I'll get more on that in a little bit. Echo chamber. So,
Just for the record, that is his father who is causing that problem.
thanks, Dad. Love you.
It skips a generation.
I hope so. Who am I kidding? That'll be me in 40 years. Anyway, back on topic. So this replacement schedule serves to, need a second. So this replacement schedule serves to keep technology in date and eliminate old technology as a potential source of error. And can't really make a replacement schedule on a spreadsheet. You can, it'd be hard. So we're planning to move to an asset management system, specifically CityWorks, which is the asset management system used by water, sewer, garage, and maybe one other department by the city. And to help with that, I created a test server. Now this test server will not only benefit IT, but water sewer is also using this test server to test their updates and before they go live. So the next project, artificial intelligence. So this slide focuses on artificial intelligence in the workplace, and I'm going to be throwing AI around a lot. I want y'all to know that I am specifically focusing on generative AI. There's other AI. AI can look at footage and find specific things, but generative AI is defined as AI that can generate text, videos, images, things of that nature. So generative AI is being implemented in tools already being used by the city. Google unveiled Google Gemini, I think last year, and Copilot, Microsoft Copilot's been around for a while. So these are already being implemented in tools that the city's already been using, and employees are actually using specific AI platforms, like Google's a search engine, but like ChatGPT is an AI platform. Employees are using that to summarize documents, summarize emails, and reword their notes, things of that nature. So AI, it's been big recently. And with the thousands of AI platforms that have been created lately, naturally, there's going to be some bad actors. Of course, these bad actors, they may pose a security risk, they may not handle our data correctly, or their AI produces false or even biased information. So to combat this and to shield themselves from potential problems, municipalities around the country, such as San Jose and Seattle, which are the two pictures you see up there, they created AI policies, generative AI policies. So these policies set guidelines for city employees on responsible AI use, and they also allow the city, or in our case, the IT committee, to vet potential AI platforms. And I'll get more on that in the next slide, which is there. So I helped with this AI policy in a couple ways. First one is research into external platforms, specifically how they handle our data. Being a local government, our data is important to us for a couple reasons. One, we don't want confidential information getting out. And two, public records requires we keep our data for a certain amount of time and we have it readily accessible. So I did research into that. Next, I created a request form for employees to use. So how this works is an employee would fill out this request form. They would send it off to the IT committee. The IT committee would get it, do their own research, and either allow or deny the platform for use within the city of Hendersonville, depending on their research. And the last contribution I made was a self-hosted AI proof of concept. So using surplus hardware and free software, I managed to make an internal generative AI platform, so think ChatGPT, but it's running on a computer upstairs. And this was made to test the feasibility of hosting our own AI as opposed to relying on external AI platforms, which you'll see some comparisons a couple slides down. So talking a little more about this AI, on the left-hand side is images produced by the AI, our internal AI, and on the right-hand side is just a generic prompt, why is the sky blue? So the AI we use, or the internal AI we have, is very similar to ChatGPT in where the user sends a message and then they get a response back. So it's like a chat bot. And ours is also capable of producing those images you see there. So after testing, we found a couple things out, me and my supervisor, Jay Heatherly. So some benefits of our internal AI is that our private data stays private. I mentioned this earlier, but it's important that we have immediate access to our data and that confidential information doesn't get out. If we host it ourselves, it's in our hard drives. We don't have to worry about anyone looking at it except us. It also allows us to have administrative permissions over the AI. We can change models, features, we can allow or deny users, things you can't really get with external platforms. We can add our own models. So if an AI model decides that it doesn't want to work, or there's an update to it that breaks it, or it just stops being useful to the city, we can remove it and replace it with a new one. And the software we're using, from the operating system to the models to the web interface, are free and open source. We can look at exactly how they work and exactly what they're doing. And that helps us a lot in the privacy concerns. Now, this was probably the most fun thing I worked on. An AI running on a surplus hardware I'm still shocked I managed to get it to work. But I believe that the most important thing I worked on is cybersecurity. Specifically phishing. So phishing is defined as an attempt by an individual or sometimes an organization to pose as a legitimate organization in an attempt to scam someone. Usually this is done over email. Well, 91% of data breaches start with successful phishing attacks. And these are getting sophisticated. So the examples I have up there are pretty obvious that they're suspicious and you probably shouldn't trust them. But yeah. Yeah.
Y'all need to quit interrupting him.
Before he got really smart.
But now attackers are using social engineering to target specific organizations, departments, or even individuals. And if these attacks are successful, they can compromise our network integrity. They can spread malware. They can steal data. They're bad. And because I have this platform, I would like to say, no, Mayor Volk will not ask you to buy our gift cards. So let's say a phishing attack does occur to the city. What happens there? Well, we need a quick reaction. Acting quickly can prevent the spread of malware and also contain breaches, stop more data from being stolen. I recommend a standardized procedure be created by the city or by someone for the city that comprises of these 4 steps. The finalized plan should be more comprehensive and probably include edge cases, but this is a good start. The 4 steps I have are identify the compromised account. The attack had to start from somewhere. Disable that account to stop the attack from occurring. Investigate the damage done. Was malware spread? Was data stolen? If data was stolen, what data? And remediate any damage. If malware was spread, remove it. If data was stolen, and if it was personal data, purchase fraud prevention services for the affected parties. Unfortunately, you can't unsteal data. Once it's out there, you can't get it back. But while quick reaction is vital, it is not the best way to do damage control. The best way is to prevent it altogether. First way, the city's doing this in a couple ways. The first way the city's doing this through Microsoft multi-factor authentication. So most of us have experience with this. You sign in into any platform, email, password, you get a text on your phone, hey, is this you? That's multi-factor authentication at work. So this helps keep us secure, and it directly stopped at least 2 management level city accounts from being hacked. And so it's effective. And that was in the past 2 weeks. I don't know past that. So my contributions to this is I work directly with VC3 to enforce MFA on employee accounts. And I guided those employees through setup to make sure things ran smoothly and it didn't end up ruining their productivity. So moving forward, the plan is to continue enforcing MFA on employees' accounts. The eventual goal is to have everyone on it, everyone employee in the city, and new accounts are being added to MFA automatically. Regular checking account integrity, have passwords been leaked, have account info been leaked, keeping up on that, and preventing account hacking through promoting awareness. And what I mean by that is KnowBe4. KnowBe4 is a security training company. It uses video lessons as well as simulated phishing emails to train employees on what phishing looks like. Now, these simulated phishing emails, they're sent out to employees, excuse me. Except instead of leading them to a suspicious link, if they click the link and fall for it, KnowBe4 says, hey, this was phishing, don't fall for this. But these attempts, they're not generic. KnowBe4 doesn't write all of them. They can be written by us or someone in the city to be socially engineered to target different departments or even individuals. And KnowBe4 also features a built-in report button to Microsoft Outlook, which means that instead of having to forward an email if it's suspicious or calling a number, you can just hit a button right in Outlook and it'll take care of it for you. So in the future, we plan to implement this with the help of VC3, add that report button to Outlook, and once everything's said and done with our KnowBe4 campaign, aggregating the results and finding where people messed up the most so we can prevent that from happening in the future. Now, since I have this platform, I would like to share some best practices to prevent your account from getting hacked, your data from being stolen, or a phishing account. Use several different passwords. Don't use the same password for everything. Lock your computer before you leave your desk. That way no one sneaks in and tries to do something behind your back. Avoid clicking on suspicious links. That should be pretty standard. And I would like to reiterate, no, Mayor Volk will not ask you for gift cards. So key points, if you are going to take anything away from this presentation, I hope it's this. A self-hosted AI may be a good alternative to external platforms. I think it requires more testing, but it looks promising. Phishing is definitely one of the most common cyber attacks. It is responsible for 91% of all data breaches. And security, specifically cybersecurity, is inconvenient, but it does help keep the city safe. And it does help the IT department out a lot. So at this time, I would like to open the floor to questions.
Any questions?
When do you graduate?
May of 25, so next year.
We'll keep that in mind. I do have to say, one evening before a meeting, I watched Jacob handle 4 different problems at one time. Like, he was trying to do one thing, and somebody else came up, like, can you do this? And he goes, yeah, yeah. And then somebody else came up, can you do, yep, yep. And he did them all before the meeting even got started. I was very impressed. So thank you for being here, and you got a lot of work done in a very short period of time.
Thank you.
Very impressive.
All right. So if there are no questions, I would like to thank City Manager John Connett, as well as all city staff, for allowing me to serve my hometown while gaining vital workplace experience. And I would also like to thank my supervisor, who isn't here. Hopefully he's not watching this and he's enjoying his vacation. IT Manager Jay Heatherly, for encouraging me to try new things, to learn as I go, and to keep moving forward when I fail. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have another presentation.
Yes, I'll ask Keegan
here we
to
go.
come forward and introduce himself and present his project.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the council. My name is Keegan Wynn, and I've been the summer intern with the Budget Department, and I am a UNC MPA student entering my second year. So today I'll be sharing an overview of my work on the Unhoused Data Gathering Initiative. Thank you, Jacob. This initiative not only provides critical insights into the state of the local unhoused population, but also lays a solid foundation for our incoming social worker. So my goal today is to highlight the key components of this project and discuss how they will support effective interventions and resource allocation for the city in the future. You will see that I provided you with folders containing a one-page overview of my project, as well as copies of this presentation and an in-depth full policy brief that you can read for a more complete understanding of the project at a later date. So what will I be covering today? So during this presentation, I'll walk you through the GIS heat map that I created, provide you with a contextual understanding of the nonprofit landscape, briefly discuss best practices and service responses, and recommend the Built for Zero model as a roadmap for success before ending with some reflections and a Q&A. So let's get started. According to HUD's point-in-time analysis, Hendersonville has experienced a 17.33% increase in the local unhoused population over the last 4 years. At this time, there are currently 176 unhoused individuals in Henderson County. But what does this mean for the city? Well, according to the National Alliance to End Homelessness, the average annual cost per chronically unhoused individual to taxpayers is over $35,000 as they require more assistance in the form of increased emergency services. Furthermore, these individuals experience drastically lower health outcomes, with the average unhoused individual living 17.5 years less than those in the general population. So clearly, this situation is not just a public health crisis, but it's also a huge financial burden on city resources. So in order to effectively address this challenge, we must first understand its scope and its impact. And so to achieve this, the city tasked me with spearheading the Unhoused Data Gathering Initiative. So this project had 4 components. The first was to create an interactive GIS heat map by breaking down data silos within the city, allowing the city to track interactions with the unhoused community members and identify trends and patterns. Second, conduct a community scan to engage stakeholders and address the landscape of service provision, as well as identify gaps in city services. The third component was to reestablish a local group of service providers in the form of the Unhoused Resource Network in order to create a more coordinated approach to the crisis. And finally, I conducted a literature review into best practices and models for addressing homelessness. So the GIS heat map that we created integrates 6 months worth of data from the police department and code enforcement, track 4 layers, which I will now walk you through. So the first data point that we have, you can see here, are police interactions. And the color density indicates frequency of interactions. So you can see the bright orange spot right there indicates a high level of police interactions with unhoused individuals. The second layer is encampment locations. Third are service provider locations. And then finally, we have vacant houses, which we've begun tracking in light of the vacant housing receivership program, which I will go into more detail in during my recommendation section. So by visualizing this data, the city can identify hotspots and trends in unhoused interactions, allowing for more targeted and proactive policies. Data will be collected and integrated on a quarterly basis, and this tool will be shared with our Unhoused Resource Network to improve the efficiency of their service delivery and promote more collaborative efforts. As the program grows, we also plan to incorporate more programmatic data from our service providers in order to gain more insight into demographic trends and effective interventions. I've also worked with the fire department to begin tracking their interactions with unhoused individuals to gain more insight into the emergency services side. So in order to assess the landscape of service provision, I also conducted a community scan by interviewing 8 service providers to understand the specific needs related to unhoused services. I then used these insights to identify key strengths as well as critical service gaps in the community's response. So the 2 main core strengths that I identified were an extensive range of services and experienced leaders that possess a deep knowledge of the area's unique challenges and needs. I also identified 5 key service gaps contributing to the unhoused situation, the first being insufficient affordable housing. Housing organizations like Thrive successfully obtain housing vouchers for their clients. However, high housing costs and limited availability lead to significant delays in transitional housing, with some clients waiting as long as 9 months to secure housing and move in. Second, only 2 behavioral health providers, VIA and Blue Ridge, operate in the area. Peer support groups such as Love and Respect report referring clients to these services, only for them to wait months to be seen. Third, coordination between nonprofits is often inconsistent, which leads to service redundancies and impedes a system-level response. And finally, a lack of a standardized intake, case management, and data entry system makes it difficult to accurately assess the true scope and impact of service provision. So before we discuss my recommendations, we'll briefly go over some best practices for supporting the unhoused. So the Housing First model is one of the most popular and effective models for transitioning folks into permanent housing. And studies have shown this approach to reduce strain on city services through a decrease in emergency room visits and police interactions. Unhoused individuals, especially the chronically unhoused, often face complex and overlapping barriers to recovery. So wraparound services help address multiple challenges and provide a holistic response to improve the efficiency of service delivery. Cross-sector collaboration is also key. This helps leverage the unique strengths and resources of different organizations in the community. And finally, research shows that it's important to avoid over-criminalizing homelessness because this simply addresses the symptoms of homelessness and not the root causes. And it can actually lead to imposing an additional cost on public systems as law enforcement, court systems, and correctional facilities become increasingly burdened with cases that involve minor offenses related to homelessness. So, in order for Hendersonville to move forward, I recommend that the city adopt the Built for Zero model for the chronically unhoused to create a coordinated and data-driven response to the crisis. The Built for Zero model is a strategy created by Community Solutions, and it's aimed at achieving functional zero homelessness, where the number of chronically unhoused individuals in a community is reduced to fewer than 3 at any given time. This model is not just academic or theoretical, it's actually been implemented across the country, with Rockford, Illinois being a successful example of this, in which they were able to reach functional zero for veterans in 2015 and functional zero for the chronically unhoused in 2017. So there are 6 key components to this model. The first is a shared definition of success to unite stakeholders around a common goal. Second is to create a unified multi-agency team. Third is to create person-specific data and use this for case management. And the fourth involves using and creating data to inform decision-making. Fifth, to target the root causes of homelessness through housing solutions. And the final component emphasizes addressing racial inequities to ensure that solutions are inclusive and equitable across all racial groups. So how do we apply this to Hendersonville? Well, luckily the city already has much of the required infrastructure already in place to hit the ground running. So first, I recommend that Hendersonville leverage the unhoused resource network to form a team dedicated to achieving functional zero homelessness. The social worker would serve as the team lead and use the shared definition to align everyone under a common metric for success. An important component of this is also going to involve coordination with region-wide initiatives such as the Region 2 Continuum of Care. County agencies such as the Health Department are already members of our group, and their presence can also be used to strengthen city-county coordination, particularly in areas such as expanding access to mental health resources. The city also already provides homeless-related funding for several organizations in our group, including Blue Ridge, Interfaith Assistance Ministry, Thrive, and Pisgah Legal. So this group can also catalyze further conversations to explore avenues for supporting existing providers to continue expanding access to mental health. Second, I recommend that Hendersonville provide the social worker with access to case management software. This will allow them to develop individual client files containing information such as their homeless history, health, and housing needs, and facilitate the creation of more tailored and personalized interventions. Third, Hendersonville should use the GIS data to fine-tune housing policies, unhoused policies, and drive discussions during the resource network and continuum of care meetings. This system-level data combined with frontline insights from our social worker and providers will provide a valuable line of insight into the effectiveness of city programs. Importantly, this GIS data can also support efforts to address racial inequities by highlighting areas where people of color are disproportionately affected and enable more equitable solutions. And fourth and finally, I recommend that Hendersonville employ targeted housing solutions aimed at increasing affordable housing stock. I recommend that you do so in 2 ways. The first is for the council to designate itself as a housing authority. This would allow the city to have greater control over the provision of affordable housing, being able to protect low-income residents from falling into homelessness and support those transitioning out of it. The city should continue to use the Strategic Housing Plan Steering Committee to leverage existing partnerships with DFI and Chapel Hill to explore best practices and successful models. Chapel Hill, for example, has successfully utilized North Carolina's housing authorities law to build and operate 336 units of public housing across 13 neighborhoods. Second, Hendersonville should implement a vacant housing receivership program similar to that employed by the city of Greensboro. This program provides a legal framework for reclaiming and rehabilitating vacant houses in order to convert them into affordable housing. Greensboro has used this program to rehabilitate 20 houses over the last 3 years. So code enforcement has already identified 50 vacant houses here, which you saw on the GIS map. So this potentially offers the city a new opportunity to increase its affordable housing stock. So unfortunately, I'm only here for the summer. So in order to maintain project momentum, I have created a timeline of key milestones for the city to pursue over the next year. So the full timeline is in my succession plan, but I've included a snapshot of the first 6 months above. So what have I learned from this project? Well, first of all, it all comes back to housing and mental health. Housing nonprofits like Thrive don't have trouble getting unhoused folks approved for housing. They simply can't find housing. Additionally, SAMHSA reports that 1/5 of individuals struggling that are in unhoused situations struggle with serious mental illness. So with only 2 behavioral health providers available in Hendersonville, this means that a key contributor to the crisis is not being significantly addressed. So our social worker will undoubtedly be an important asset and make an impact. However, she can refer 100 people to housing and mental health services, but it won't significantly lower our rates unless folks can access these services. So it's imperative that the city expand access if it wants to reach functional zero. Second, serving meals at the rescue mission and meeting folks at encampments taught me that the community still has pride and many folks really do want to make a change. However, oftentimes they've been treated as outcasts for so long that they become distrustful of the system. So solutions that respect their dignity will be more effective because they foster trust and reduce stigma. The third thing that I learned is that it takes a village. The city cannot fix this situation alone, and collaborating with existing providers through the resource network will be key for building trust and creating a system-level response. And finally, I learned that results take time. There's no quick fix. Hendersonville is well positioned to tackle the crisis with these overlapping initiatives, but it will take time before we notice an observable change. So Hendersonville has pulled the lever. It's going to take a while for the ship to correct course. So it's imperative that the city stay united and committed to seeing these programs through. So before I take your questions, I'd also like to thank everyone in City Hall, as well as the Community Planning Department, Police Department, Fire Department, and all those service providers that I spoke with for their help in working on this project. I couldn't have done it without them, and their dedication to the city and deep well of human empathy has been truly inspiring. But most of all, I also would like to extend a big thank you to my supervisors, Adam Muir and Jenny Floyd, for their mentorship, wealth of knowledge, and trust. They are truly the embodiment of the happy warrior, and they have taught me so much about what it means to be a dedicated public servant with a love of place. So with that, I am happy to take any questions you might have.
Any questions?
Yes, Madam Mayor. The data that you have for the 4-year overview of Henderson County unhoused population, does that include
Yes.
unhoused youth?
So the NC Coalition to End Homelessness, they receive funding from HUD, the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development. And through this, they use the point in time count to track the number of unhoused individuals in the community. And this is broken down by demographics, chronic, and also 3 categories: chronically unhoused, veterans, and youth and families.
And I think we only have one agency that responds to unhoused youth. And I didn't see it listed here. What's the name of it? Oh, no, is that it? Okay. I stand corrected.
Unfortunately, I was not able to interview everybody in the community. I believe the providers that I spoke with provided a comprehensive overview and a good snapshot of some of the challenges that the frontline providers are going through.
Overall, excellent work.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, the number stunned me. You said 176 unhoused individuals right now at a cost of $35,578 per chronically unhoused.
Mhm.
That's $6,261,000.
So every individual on that
saying there?
count is not necessarily chronically unhoused. So that's a point in time count is it's a snapshot into the number of people experiencing homelessness on any given night in January. So the federal government takes this measurement once a year through all of the providers that receive funding from them, and they aggregate that into the point in time number.
All right.
So a chronically unhoused individual as someone that has been experiencing homelessness for 12 months or longer.
Okay.
And the federal definition for being homeless is somebody that has spent 14 days or more in a situation that is uninhabitable for a human being.
And you were talking about targeted housing solutions. I think you said Greensboro had done a good job. How does, if the city became, housing corporate, how do you acquire these properties? Do you do just eminent domain? Do you go in and
So it's a mixture.
how did they do that?
Yeah, so it's a mixture. So just because a house is vacant doesn't mean the city can just come in and take
Right.
it over.
That's what I'm asking.
Oftentimes, these houses have liens against them. So the city can use the debt that is owed to it to take over that property. Sometimes too, the property is just so dilapidated and broken down that they are able to condemn it and take it over. So there's various legal mechanisms. I include that in the policy brief. There's there's some links to some articles in there and some legal analyses by the School of Government. But it is not a quick process.
Could I ask this then? Hang on a minute, because haven't we done some, we're not a housing assistance by any means.
Housing authority.
Housing authority, we're not that.
Yeah.
But we have worked very closely with housing assistance.
Absolutely.
By going out and securing properties. And is that the same type of thing, just the city council not becoming a housing authority, John?
So yes and no. So our approach so far has been working closely with Housing Assistance, who is a great community partner of acquiring large tracts of land where they can create housing, typically through low-income tax credit projects or USDA programs as far as single family. So that's one approach, is to partner with our nonprofits here in the community. It's worked well. I think what Keegan is talking about and what Angie has mentioned is under North Carolina law, the city council could designate themselves as a true housing authority. We have a housing authority here, which would give you some authority. The council would have to decide whether you wanted to use that authority. That may give you some legal mechanisms. I don't have a full, Angie would have to give you the full detail, and we aren't prepared to do that tonight, but you would have some authority if you needed to use eminent domain, if you needed to, transfer property for specific reasons to deal with authority. It gives you some special authority under the general statutes that you don't have as a local government. But I want to focus a little bit on vacant housing for a minute. Not only is vacant housing ideal for, or can be used to help our unhoused population, that is one way, but as a community, having too much vacant housing stock, especially in a community that have a high cost of living, we really want that housing stock in use, right? I mean, vacant housing sitting around underutilized is not good for, it's not good for a healthy community. So whether it's used to, as Keegan says, or as a potential for our unhoused is one way, but another way is to encourage our property owners to utilize that housing in the private capital market, we're still a capitalistic system. We still want it activated. So there's a way we could use it to serve our unhoused, but also through our minimum housing, we should also encourage folks to put it back on the market to help someone who may need it for rental or to purchase. So there's a couple of different ways to approach that that helps the market. So I don't want the people listening and the people in the room to think that vacant housing should only be used for the unhoused. That's a great use for it. I hope we can do it, but still, as being a community that we are, we should encourage people just to put that back into the system. I mean, it's just good for a healthy community. I hope that makes sense. So.
I'm still going here. It's like drinking from a fire hose. A lot of good stuff, and I really commend you for it. You touched on something that's kind of ironic, that you touched on, I think it was Rockford, Illinois, put in a program in 2015 that pretty much housed every unhoused veteran.
Yep.
How did they do that?
So solving veteran homelessness is generally considered like one of the low-hanging fruits because you already have a very comprehensive range of services through the VA. So the VA has a universal case management system for every veteran, and because they're veterans, they receive a lot of public benefits. So makes it much easier to connect them with services, as well as be able to see what kind of interventions they've already received and which were effective. And just having that whole case file really helps approach it from an individual level. So yeah, it was an interaction. It was a mixture of identifying folks and then prioritizing them for housing as well, because they, so in order to get housing under the federal guidelines, you have to be assessed via a federal intake form. And as a veteran, you receive priority. Families, youth, and veterans receive priority, and folks with disabilities. So that also helps to get them ahead of the line and be housed much quicker. So there are several incentives there that do make it a bit easier to fix that situation.
Is there a published study of that you're aware of? Where did you gather?
There's a case study on community solutions. The Urban Institute has also done a full study on the Built for Zero model as well. So there are multiple cities that have achieved functional zero homelessness for veterans. The chronically homeless functional zero is much more difficult to achieve, but it's supposed to be built forward in steps. So lots of communities like to start with veterans and then move to chronically unhoused, and then families or vice versa.
Could you share that?
So I know it's like there's a lot of information.
Could you share that with us at some point?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
It's also included in my references in the policy.
I was looking through your references there, but they're about this big.
In the policy brief.
Okay.
But yeah, happy to share that.
Afterwards.
Anything else? Well, Keegan has been sitting by a computer right outside my office, and most of the time he's so intent he doesn't even look up when I come in. So appreciate the hard work that you've been doing.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
If anybody in the room worried about it next year.
I think we've proven tonight that the future is bright for our community and our country with these two young folks and many young folks. So thank you, Keegan and Jacob, for the work you've done. Jacob, just for the record, you had a lot to overcome based on your father's actions tonight. So thank you for doing that. Keegan, it's been a pleasure, and we've enjoyed you all summer. So thank you.
Thank you, John.
We appreciate their being with us this summer and wish them both the very best as they head back. Okay, we have some public hearings. The first is an annexation on Upward Road. Mr. Morrow.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of City Council. Hope you all are doing well tonight. So we do have a petition for a satellite annexation on Upward Road. At the July 10th City Council meeting, City Council did accept the certificate of sufficiency for this petition. The annexation petition was submitted by the property owners, Lynn and Lyndon Hill. The annexation is for one parcel that is approximately 1.2 acres and fronts entirely on Upward Road. On the map on the right, you will see that this property is approximately 2,400 feet from the City of Hendersonville corporate limits, and the subject property is not closer to any other municipality. So I do have a motion for approval and denial, and also the annexation plat if we need that as well. I'm happy to answer any questions you all may have.
Anyone have any questions? Madam Clerk, has this public hearing been advertised in accordance with general statutes?
Yes, Mayor, it has.
So we will open this public hearing. We had one individual sign up in person to speak, Lynn Williams.
Thank you for your time. Lynn Williams, Chadwick Avenue. I did speak at the planning board about this as well. Where to even start? So this is farmland that we're annexing. And then I believe right after it's annexed through forced annexation for the sewage, then it will be zoned. My understanding is the landowner didn't request a specific rezoning, but we're going to be doing that next. I also understand the county has no say in this process, and I know there's huge efforts to preserve farmland, not just in the county, but with the city residents. Is all of Upward Road going to be rezoned commercial before the November election? And then just to list out some of the ag land that we lost 151 acres over at the Washburn property. We lost at the end of South Allen Road, we had that agricultural land there, and now it's 4-story apartments. I counted 300 acres or more of ag land that we've lost along the borders of the city to the county just in the past 2 to 3 years. When I asked the comp plan project manager how much farmland is in the city, I was told 0. That's because every time we annex it, it's converted to commercial and more farmland gets lost. Some county members have efforts to enact state legislation to prevent you, the city of Hendersonville, from forcing annexation for, say, something like sewer. The comp plan gives no clear protections for any precious historic farmland between here and the interstate, from Four Seasons all the way to Upward Road. I believe you have 60 days for the rezoning. What are you going to do to protect our disappearing farmland? Are you going to work with the county? Or our history and our heritage is intrinsically connected to the land, protecting the intricate balance of nature with respect for our collective inheritance and rights to these ancient rivers, fertile soils, biodiverse landscape with its irreplaceable wildlife. Many local farms contain a wetland, a forest, and places to grow food. The comp plan has no protections for similar spots or New Hope Road farmland, the crown jewel of our county. The comp plan gobbles up all the farmland, like I said, between here and the interstate from Four Seasons Boulevard all the way to Upward Road and all surrounding Upward Road. Within 3 years, Upward Road exit is becoming unrecognizable. The mountains, the trees, the pastoral landscape is an essential piece of our history. We need to step up and protect farmland. When you approved, annexed, and rezoned the 6 lots directly next to this one, across the street from the Dario on Upward Road, this allowed for farmland to be converted into commercial highway mixed use for a 5th gas station on this one segment of Upward Road. I said this during the neighboring rezoning, that this rezoning to commercial highway mixed use would create a domino effect to set the trend towards development of our remaining farmlands. Please be thoughtful about how you can play a key role in the nationwide and local priority to stop the loss of farmland. North Carolina is 2nd in the nation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else present who wishes to speak? Is there someone online seeking recognition to speak?
No, Madam Mayor.
No? All right. In that case, we will close that public hearing. Council, discussion or motion?
I think before we make a motion, I would like to make a few points. And I've vividly remember saying this several years ago when we did talk about the Washburn tract, at least I feel like several years ago. We do not have any control over folks that decide to sell their land. So we all see that farmland is being sold, and that person who has bought that land has a right to develop that piece of land. Sitting up here, we can't say, no, you can't do that because we think it should be a farm. That's not within our power. It's unfortunate, but I think one way that we could help that is to encourage people to want to continue to be farmers and support farmers. But as it stands right now, it seems like a lot of people that are my generation don't want to do that because it's a lot of really hard work and you don't really get any recognition or money for it. So why would we continue to do that? The second thing would be, this person is not being forced to annex. Yes, they want to be hooked up to sewer. Yes, you need to annex in order to get sewer. They could put septic tanks there if they wanted to build housing, but because of whatever project it is they want to do, they need to be hooked up to sewer, and so they're going to annex. That was their choice. And when we get to the rezoning, it's being rezoned from community commercial, from the county zoning, to our version of that zoning, which is commercial highway mixed use. So once we annex something from the county, we have to rezone it in our own zoning because their zoning won't transfer. I think that covers it. I just want to make sure that everybody understands exactly the process that's happening right now.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or any motion?
Madam Mayor, I move the City Council adopt an ordinance of the City of Hendersonville to annex non-contiguous property owned by Linden and Lynn Hill, identified as PIN 9577-99-0735, finding that the standards established by the North Carolina General Statute 160A-58 have been satisfied and that the annexation is in the best interest of the city.
Is there any discussion? Not. Those in favor of the motion for annexation say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Ayes have it, motion carries, and that annexation has taken place. Okay, next we have, since we have annexed it, we have to zone it to cities zoning category. And Mr. Morrow, you could explain what we're doing here.
Yes, so as previously mentioned, the city does have 60 days to zone the property. The county zoning does stay in place for that 60 days or until the city initiates zoning. We, as the staff, did not receive a rezoning request. So as a staff, we were proposing the same zoning district we proposed for all parcels that annex into the city along the Upper Road Corridor, which is commercial highway mixed use. If approved, any proposed use within that district would be allowed. The city's comprehensive plan currently, or I guess the old city's, or it's still the current one. So the current city, our comprehensive plan designates it as high-intensity neighborhood, and the county's new comprehensive plan designates it as infill area. So a little bit of background for the creation of CHMU. In 2010, Henderson County Board of Commissioners voted against the city of Hendersonville's extending its ETJ into the Upper Road Corridor. However, the city did want to plan for future growth, so there would be some type of plan in place if the city were to grow out in that area, which led staff on March 3rd, 2011, brought forward the proposal for the creation of the Commercial Highway Mixed Use District. The then planning director explained that the intent was to apply the zoning classification to properties in the Upper Road area that wish to annex to the city in order to obtain sewer connections, and the city council voted unanimously for that creation of the district. The subject property is currently in the zoning jurisdiction of Henderson County. The parcel is zoned community commercial. The subject property is located in an area where some parcels have been annexed into the city with zoning designations, including CHMU, and also a conditional zoning district for Oak Preserve down there towards the bottom of the screen. The county zoning in this area is predominantly community commercial along the stretch of Upward Road and residential 1 as it steps back further away from Upward Road. A comparative list of uses allowed between CHMU and community commercial is shown on the screen. The list doesn't completely align just due to the fact that the city and county do allow different uses. They do align in that they do permit a lot of the same commercial uses. It is worth mentioning that a range of recreational uses, automobile sales and services, and manufactured homes are permitted in the county, but are not permitted in the city, in the CHMU. CHMU does also allow the building of multifamily and also has design standards for the buildings that would be built on the parcel, where community commercial does not have building design standards. So moving on to some site photos of some current conditions of the site. The top left is a view of the subject property from Upward Road facing southeast. The top right is the view of the mature vegetative buffer at the rear of the property. Bottom left is the view of the rear of the property facing Upward Road. And the bottom right is the view of a pond on the adjacent property that is owned by the NCDOT. So the 2030s comprehensive plan, as I mentioned, designates this as high-intensity neighborhood. Parcels to the north and east are on Upward Road are also designated as high-intensity neighborhood. Parcels to the west along Upward Road are designated as neighborhood activity center. Properties southeast of Bell Avenue are outside the city's future land use map study area. The county's 2045 future land use map designates the subject property and all adjacent properties as an infill area. Infill areas consist of residentially focused areas that include a mix of housing types. Inside subdivisions and planned developments, these areas should have an improved transportation network to accommodate a variety of home options. A universal design that allows aging in place should be encouraged where appropriate. The CHMU does align with the majority of the guidelines of high-intensity neighborhood, and the area is also designated as a priority infill area in the city's comprehensive plan. I'm going to touch on some of the relevant portions of each of the chapters. An exhaustive list was included in the packet. So one of the strategies is in the public housing or population and housing is for the promote compatible infill development and to encourage mixed land use patterns so that people can walk to services within a certain distance. The natural and environmental resources, there was no relevant goals, strategies, or actions directly applicable to this initial zoning. Same with cultural and historic resources, community facilities and water resources, and transportation and circulation. It does encourage mixed-use pedestrian-friendly development that reduces the need to drive between land uses. So as for compatibility, in considering the vehicular traffic along Upward Road, which is considered a boulevard, and the interchange, which is for I-26, the CHMU zoning district permits uses that are compatible with the area, and the design guidelines of CHMU further support the compatibility. The change conditions, Upward Road is a corridor expanding or experiencing significant growth. In the last 3 years, there have been no less than 10 development requests / approvals in the Upward Road area alone. In addition to those development applications, there have been other developments who have reached out, some of which have been significant in scale, while other areas in Upper Hendersonville are growing. Upward Road is seeing a lot of development requests. So public interest design guidelines found in CHMU support the creation of compatible high-quality development. Additional quality commercial development within the city will generate additional tax revenue. Additional quality residential development within the city would provide additional housing. The public facilities, the site would be served by city utilities. Effects on natural environment. As a standard rezoning, there is no proposed development to consider as part of the rezoning process. The subject property is currently vacant. The rear of the property is lined by a dense grove of vegetation, and there is a blue line stream along the rear of that property. The City of Hendersonville Planning Board unanimously recommended approval at their July 11th meeting. The city's planning board had this comprehensive plan consistency statement, which states that the goals and strategies of high-intensity neighborhood calls for primary and secondary recommended land uses, locations, and development guidelines which align with the proposed CHMU zoning. This was their rationale for approval. We have a draft rationale for denial, and I'm happy to answer any questions y'all may have.
Any questions?
Madam Mayor would like this.
Yeah.
Upward Road, the city did not develop that sewer line and everything out there originally, did it?
The sewer line along Oak Road was originally installed by Henderson County as part of the Mud Creek Sewer District.
Right. And what happened? If you could give a executive summary, it's because I'm tired of hearing us get bashed with forced annexation. The county created that agreement when they had issues.
And Mayor Volt, correct anything I get wrong, please. So prior to 2000, in the 80s and the 90s, there was a desire to have sewer in the southern part of the city along Spartanburg Highway, out Upward Road. At that time, the city had said they would not extend sewer to that point, and the county set up their own sanitary sewer district in that area, which ultimately ran sewer out Upward Road, basically, I think, to serve the elementary school, but also provided service in the area. After a period of time, there was discussion about who should own that system. A little bit of disagreement, but after disagreement, city and county came together, negotiated what is known as the Mud Creek water and sewer agreement that basically said that it laid out the provisions for the provision of sewer in the Mud Creek watershed, which is basically all goes back into Edneyville and back. But anyway, but as part of that, the city then acquired. The county transferred the sewer system that serves Upward Road that ultimately went to the elementary school, Upward Elementary, but also provided for commercial development along the interstate development. So provided for commercial development, also allowed for industrial development in that area. And so you've had commercial and industrial development under city zoning as well as under county zoning. Some of that area at the interchange was originally developed under county zoning. So you've had both commercial under city and county development. Once the city took over the sewer system, the agreement allows for city to provide sewer. It has been the city council's policy and is not city council policy, but also is permissible by state law that sewer is an urban services, and as an urban services, the city can request that a property owner petition for annexation. It is not forced annexation. There's been a number of court cases in North Carolina that this is strictly voluntary. The property owner has a choice. However, they can, in order to get city services, the city can ask them to petition for annexation. That is, the city does not do that for water service. However, we do it for sewer service. So the term forced annexation is incorrect and a misnomer. And the development of Upward Road also can be contributed not only to the interstate, which the city did not build, but also to the expansion of Upward Road, which was expanded by North Carolina Department of Transportation as an urban roadway, again, which the city did not build. And this area is providing housing to folks that need housing. So in addition to what Councilmember Simpson said, the city has no control how property owners sell their property and how they choose to develop it.
And again, all within the guidelines of the Mud Creek Agreement.
Absolutely.
Was brought up by the county.
Yes.
And asked the city to help with it, and we have been abiding by that, by the law.
Yes.
I would even venture to chime in here that one of the best economic development projects that the city and the county have actually jointly participated in is a really large industrial project called Jabil. It's a manufacturing plant that has actually been able to provide, I don't know, I think we're at like 75 or 100 jobs to Henderson County with an average salary of over $55,000 a year. And, we're proud of being able to do those things for our community and to provide good jobs for people so that they can afford to live and work here.
Anything else? Okay. Right. Madam Clerk, has this public hearing been advertised in accordance with general statutes?
Yes, Mayor, it has.
We will open this public hearing. One person has signed up, Lynn Williams.
Thank you for your time. I'm glad I have the chance to speak again. So what I heard Ms. Simpson say is that people in your generation don't want to farm. I'm in your generation and I want to farm, and lots of people want to farm. So you have one perspective, but there's lots of people that want to farm still in my generation and your generation. So I just want to make sure that you know that, because I'm one of them. Some of us have had families here for 7 generations who have farmed. So that's why it's important to us. And, you know, relocating from somewhere else, you may not understand the essential need to be close to the land and protect the farmland. What I'm hearing you say is it was community commercial, and then now it has to be rezoned. Well, I mean, couldn't you work with the county to smooth out the edges of the comp plan between the county's comp plan and the city's comp plan and preserve farmland along the way? And do what Representative Moffitt suggests about coming up with an incentive to pay the difference between the farmland present value use and the market value, so whoever wants to sell the land can make as much money as they planned. And we can still save and preserve land. I'm hearing you say that your hands are tied behind your back. But you could work with the county and the state to forge a solution, working with local legislators. Specifically to this corridor on Upward Road, there's no current traffic study. We're putting commercial highway mixed use, but we really have no understanding of, is it going to be as backed up as it is on Four Seasons Boulevard? Because, I mean, without planning, it's going to probably be worse with those huge apartments on South Allen. What I heard you say is the county voted against extending the EJT. Why can't you respect that? Is it greed? This particular land is somewhat personal. Many residents have cherished this plot of land with the donkey and the barn, and now it's going to be gone. And if you're not from here, you just might not understand. Open space, natural resources, and farmland. In the presentation, there was no relevant things listed for natural resources or historic notes of any sort. What? There's a blue line stream along the back. It's a farm. It's open space, which is apparently something we're going to compromise when you go to rezone what it is now to what it's going to be, because it said it wasn't fully consistent. This is an example of why having the goals listed in the comp plan for historic priorities and preservation of natural resources and farmland are most often just ignored. So we can put it in the comp plan, but if you just don't even prioritize it, then we're just going to keep having the same problem. Moving forward, it will be, my understanding, a standard rezoning for certain things that will go here. So that means we won't go through the conditional rezoning process. That means it'll be a standard rezoning, so there won't be a neighborhood compatibility meeting. And all they'll do is get an administrative okay as it goes through the planning board and the council. So how are we not considering the environment along the way? Why must people annex to get water and sewer? Why can't they just pay a fee? And this topic of forced annexation, I'm quoting the agricultural leaders in our community that created the Farmland Preservation Task Force that met on Monday. They were talking about forced annexation under their breath a little, of course. So I'm not making this up. This is what our community leaders are talking about. When they talk about the city of Hendersonville, you can watch it yourself. And so I just, not making this up out of anywhere. It is a problem. Help us come up with a solution. Please stop saying your hands are tied behind your back. You can't do this, you can't do that. Of course you can. You can work together and we can come up with solutions. That's what you're here for. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Is there anyone else here who wishes to speak? Is there anyone online? No. Okay.
No, Madam Mayor.
No. Okay. We'll close that public hearing. All right, council?
Madam Mayor, I move the City Council adopt an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the City of Hendersonville, changing the zoning designation of the subject property, PIN 9577-99-0735, from Henderson County Community Commercial to City of Hendersonville Commercial Highway Mixed Use, based on the following. The petition is found to be consistent with the City of Hendersonville 2030 Comp Plan based on the information and the staff analysis, because the goals of the strategies of LU 7, which is high-intensity neighborhood, calls for primary and secondary recommended land use, locations, and development guidelines which align with the proposed CHMU zoning. Furthermore, we find this petition to be reasonable and in the public interest based on the following. The commercial highway mixed use is a zoning district established for upward road planning area. The commercial highway mixed use zoning district is well suited to achieve the goals of the comprehensive plan for this area. The property is located in an area designated as priority infill area according to the city's comprehensive plan.
Is there any discussion? Not those in favor of the rezoning for the Upward Road parcel, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Ayes have it. Motion carries, and we have that. Let's take about a 5-minute break because the next item is probably going to be lengthy. Give us a chance to stand up and stretch. Got to keep council happy. All right, the next item of business is a conditional rezoning for the Felicia Reeves home. Mr. Morrow.
So the city has received a conditional rezoning application for the property located at 1744 Meadowbrook Terrace. The property is made up of one parcel. The applicant and owner of the property are Aura Home Women Vets. The property is currently zoned R10 Medium Density Residential. The application is to rezone the subject property to R10 CZD or Medium Density Residential Conditional Zoning District. The subject property is approximately 0.69 acres, and they're proposing to reuse the existing structure for a residential care facility for female veterans. The accommodations would be for 12 occupants, which does include an on-site director. The 2030 comprehensive plan designates the subject property as medium-intensity residential, or neighborhood, sorry. On the screen are some of the photos of the existing conditions of the site. Top left is a view of the existing structure that is proposed to be renovated and reused. No expansions of this existing building are proposed. The structure was originally constructed in 1960. The top right view is of the mature buffer to the northeast, which is slated for preservation and will continue to be a buffer between the subject property and adjacent property. Bottom left is a view of the existing 4-unit multifamily building that is directly adjacent to the subject property to the north. Bottom right is a view of the pond located on the adjacent property to the east. The pond is located on the backside of the 1801 Asheville Highway property. On the screen is a proposed site plan for the development. The proposed use of the development, as I mentioned, is an adaptive reuse. And beyond an adaptive reuse, the use of the building would be a residential care facility, which is defined as an establishment primarily engaged in the provision of residential, social, and personal care for children, the aged, special categories of persons, with some limits on ability for self-care, but where medical care is not a major element. Such facilities include homes for the aged and infirmed, and other similar residential care uses not otherwise defined in the ordinance. For the existing building, it totals 8,020 square feet. Phase 1 of the project would be 4,846 square feet within the existing building, and this and would also include a 350 square foot shed to be renovated. That's on the rear of the property. And then phase 2 would be 2,824 square feet. No new buildings would be constructed or proposed. The entire project will be within the existing building footprint. The project is proposed to be completed in 2 phases, as mentioned. The first phase would include 5 client residential rooms, 1 director residential room, an exercise room, a TV/game room, a counselor's office, classroom, laundry room, and the existing shed to be renovated. Phase 2 would involve the kitchen, a security room, a pantry, and 6 additional residential rooms. The site will have 2 access points, both of which will be off Meadowbrook Terrace. The main access point to the development will be a one-way travel lane that runs parallel to the front of the building. A secondary travel lane will be provided along the northeastern or northwestern property boundary that will provide access to 6 parking spaces located to the side or rear of the building. Sidewalk will have, or they will have to provide sidewalks as far as the project is concerned. All site lighting will be required to conform with the city's lighting standards for multifamily developments. The lighting plan itself is a component of the final site plan review. Parking is required at 1 off-street parking space for each 6 beds in the facility. Parking shall be screened so that it's not easily visible from the street. So they're actually required to have 3 parking spaces. They are providing 14. The 8 parking spaces in the front will be screened by landscaping, and the 6 parking spaces at the rear will be screened by the building itself from the right-of-way. Other landscaping. They'll be providing vehicular use landscaping, street trees, common open space plantings, and open space plantings. So according to the 2008 FEMA flood maps, all portions of this property does fall within the special flood hazard area. Even if rezoned, the project will still be reviewed for conformance with any applicable city floodplain requirements, as well as any FEMA requirements. This project would be classified as redevelopment in the floodway or special flood hazard area and would have to adhere to that section of the zoning ordinance. And the existing building is approximately 1 foot 6 inches below the base flood elevation. As far as supplementary standards, the zoning ordinance requires supplementary standards for both adaptive reuse projects as well as residential care facilities. Instead of going through all those standards, there was a detailed breakdown in your packet. So moving into conditions. So the first set of conditions are developer proposed conditions. So they have, of course, agreed to these conditions. These are currently on the site plan and would be approved with the motion as written. So these are currently on the site plan. So the developer is to widen the existing gravel access to 20 feet from Meadowbrook Terrace. The city standard is 24 feet, so they're asking for a 4-foot reduction in the normal standard for that type of parking. The next condition is the renovation/adaptive reuse of the existing commercial building for proposed residential care facilities for women's veterans will be completed in phases, ultimately providing living accommodations for 12 occupants, including an on-site director. Support functions include a kitchen, laundry room, classroom, exercise room, and TV room. So this condition does 2 separate items. The first item is lock in the proposed use of the site for a specific tenant. There were concerns during the neighborhood compatibility meeting of what this site could become if rezoned. Their development team is using this condition to further narrow down what the allowed use of the site would be, which is a residential care facility for 11 female veterans and 1 on-site director. The second part of the condition is asking for a relaxation from one of the supplementary standards for residential care facilities. The ordinance states that the residential care facility must be a reuse of an existing residential structure. The structure is currently classified as a commercial structure by Henderson County Building Inspections. So the third condition is a reduction in the required open space from 60 to 36%. 60% is a supplementary standard for adaptive reuses. Due to the existing restraints on the site, the development team state that they can only provide 36%. And that the last one would be the new sidewalk would be provided as a part of phase 2 instead of phase 1. So that are all the developer proposed conditions. So the planning board did propose this following condition at their June 13th meeting. The condition they provided was a fenced and landscape buffer shall be provided on the western and southern property boundaries. Fencing shall be a minimum of 6 feet in height. The buffer provided shall be similar to the buffer requirements for a day center. All fencing shall be built in such a way to meet any applicable floodplain requirements. This condition was not agreed to by the developer, and they have not included this into the site plan. So if you all come to an agreement with the developer on this condition, this would have to be stated in the motion before it would be included. So with that, we have a staff proposed condition. I'm going to open up to let Mike Huffman come up here and touch on this one. And then once Mike is through, I'll finish the presentation, and then we'll both be up here if you all have any questions for me or Mike.
Good evening, Council. So these staff proposed conditions are related to the location in the special flood hazard area. We are actually going to withdraw these conditions from the project because if approved, the project would still have to be reviewed and approved under the flood damage prevention ordinance. And so that would be an administrative decision that in review. So we are going to withdraw these 2 conditions. Any questions?
You're withdrawing them because they will have to adhere to them anyway.
Correct.
Okay.
It's as it was, okay.
The ordinance is in place, and so we will utilize the ordinance as if this is approved as part of the rezoning.
I feel like a magician for a second.
Stealing
Sleight of hands on
clicker.
Lost it myself. So Moving on to the neighborhood compatibility meeting. So that meeting was held on May 1st, 2024. There were 18 residents in total in attendance, and we did receive 3 public comments for that meeting. The main topics discussed were the type of services that would be providing on the site, flooding impacts, how the people would be selected for this facility, and would the VA play a role in that, questions about staffing, security, and hours of operation, and then the need for affordable housing, especially for our veterans. So moving into the current zoning and land use, so the subject property is located approximately 450 feet from a major commercial corridor of Asheville Highway. The Asheville Highway corridor is to the north and east of the subject property and is comprised of a mix of commercial uses, including restaurants, retail, grocery stores, and medical offices. All abutting properties are zoned R10, medium-density residential. R10 is the dominant zoning classification to the south and west of the subject property. The surrounding area is predominantly comprised of single-family residential with some two-family and small-scale multifamily present as well. Directly to the northwest of the subject property is a quadplex. A duplex can be found directly across the street from the subject property. The subject property is also within close proximity to Druid Hills Local Historic District. However, this subject property is outside of the historic district and would not be required to follow procedures for properties located within that historic district. The property is within close proximity to Patton Park. There is also an unnamed tributary of Britton Creek to the north of the subject property. Judging by previous records, it appears that the retirement home had a capacity of 30 to 40 persons. The structure was built in 1960 and would appear to operate as a retirement home for the majority of those years. And judging by aerial imagery, the site has been somewhat or completely vacant since 2011, and this has led to a great deal of depreciation of the building. The subject property is designated as medium-intensity neighborhood in the 2030 comprehensive plan. This designation encompasses all of the single-family residential neighborhoods to the south and west of the subject property. This does include Druid Hills. Parcels to the east along the Asheville Highway corridor designated as Neighborhood Activity Center. The natural resource and agricultural designation does run along this area as well. This designation follows the unnamed tributary of Britton Creek to the north and also encompasses the pond located directly to the east of the subject property. So the goal of medium intensity neighborhood is to provide a transition between high and low intensity neighborhood areas while providing a wide range of housing formats and price points to promote walkable neighborhood design and compatible infill development in new neighborhoods, and as a means of preserving and enhancing existing neighborhoods. The goals, primary and secondary recommended land uses and development guidelines for this designation are in the staff report, but I'm happy to go through those if needed. The property is designated as a preservation/enhancement area, and these areas are to be developed areas in which few significant changes are expected, or undeveloped areas that are not considered a high priority of growth. The city should respond to development or redevelopment in these areas by maintaining and enhancing existing neighborhood character and maintaining consistency with comprehensive plan goals and strategies. And another goal is to encourage infill development that utilizes existing infrastructure in order to maximize public investment. So as mentioned, I won't go through all the strategies, actions, and goals, but I will touch on some of those. So one strategy, as I mentioned, is to promote compatible infill development. Goal is to encourage a wide range of housing types and price points. The natural resource environmental section, a goal is to preserve environmentally sensitive areas in order to protect life and property from natural hazards, protect water resources, and preserve natural habitat. One of the strategies is to discourage and reduce development of structures and impervious surfaces within the FEMA floodway and 100-year floodplain. Provide a variety of open space within Hendersonville. Promote preservations of woodlands, mature trees. Trees provide several additional community benefits. And lastly, another goal is reduce the ecological footprint of development and developing areas in order to reduce the impact on natural resources. So the only cultural or historical resource strategy that is applicable for this project is to promote investment in and adjacent to historic districts through compatible infill development, particularly on currently underutilized non-historic properties. There were no goals or strategies within community facilities. Water resources states that understanding the communities and natural environment located downstream are dependent on clean water and strive for the preservation of the quality of water that flows through Henderson County. And transportation and circulation, as I mentioned, is considered a local street. The Walk Hendo plan identified sidewalks along Meadowbrook Terrace. That's a priority. And a strategy within the transportation chapter is to ensure that all bus stops are in locations that can be accessed safely and conveniently by pedestrians. So getting into compatibility, the building on the site was initially constructed in 1960. The site has operated mostly as a retirement care facility. The last retirement care facility appeared to be in operation until 2012, according to aerial imagery. According to seniorscare.com, the facility had a 30-person capacity for branch 1 and then a 10-person capacity for branch 2. The density associated with the previous use was higher than what is being proposed with the residential care facility. The age of the building in relation with the previous higher density commercial use shows that this use can be compatible with the surrounding area. The change conditions, the retirement care home use previously occupied the site was a legal non-conforming use. Since that use was vacated from the property for more than 180 days, it cannot be reestablished. For this reason, it is likely that any use that goes into this building will require rezoning, and more than likely it will be an adaptive reuse conditional zoning district. The size of the building and limitations in R10 does not make the reuse of the existing structure easily brought into conformance. So public interest, Henderson County and Hendersonville have a large number of unhoused citizens. The city has worked with local nonprofits, other local government agencies, as well as churches in coordination with the city's unhoused network. The city understands that the need for aid in housing the unhoused in our community. Some of the most vulnerable within our already vulnerable unhoused population can be our veterans. The proposed development would house homeless female veterans in our community. The existing building is largely in disrepair and contributing to urban blight. The building site is limited in the renovations and upfits that can occur due to the fact that it is devoted to a non-conforming use. The public facilities portion, the building is currently served by Hendersonville Services. And as I mentioned earlier, the proposed site is approximately 600 feet from an Apple Country Transit stop. The distance would be within walking distance for someone to use this service. As far as effect on natural environment, mature trees, there are a large number of mature trees and vegetation around the subject property. This mature vegetation creates a buffer around 3 sides of the parcel. All of the existing trees are slated for preservation, minus 1 tree on the front that would have to be removed for the new drive aisle. The floodplain subject property is completely within the 100-year floodplain. It will be required to meet any applicable standards in Chapter 17 of the zoning ordinance, as well as any floodplain or FEMA standards. The City of Hendersonville Planning Board made a motion recommending approval, finding that the petition was consistent with the comprehensive plan and reasonable and in the public interest. At their June meeting, this motion carried 5-3. On the screen is the city's planning board comprehensive plan consistency statement, which states the petition supports the city's 2030 comprehensive plan's goals by adhering to the preservation and enhancement area designation for the subject property. The proposal enhances and renovates a long vacant and decaying structure without expanding it, promoting compatibility with the surrounding area. This was the planning board's reasonable statement for approval. I've also provided a draft rationale or draft reasonableness statement for denial, and I'm happy to answer any questions you all may have, and then Mike is still here for any floodplain related questions.
Okay, questions? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Would the developer like to make their presentation now? Okay, there will be a public hearing for other people to speak, but if you have a presentation.
Is this the one for it? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for allowing us to present to you. We appreciate the time that you guys are listening. My name is Lisa Clark. I am a veteran, and I'm on the board of directors and the secretary for Aura Home Women Vets. So Aura Home Women Vets, what we're doing with the Felicia Reeves home, that's what we call this facility here in Hendersonville. It's going to be a residence for up to 5, in the first phase is up to 5 U.S. military women veterans, plus a live-in house manager. I'm sorry, I move a little bit when I talk. Its purpose is to basically get women veterans to independent housing, eventually of independent housing. So we support them with temporary housing. The average stay would be about 6 to 9 months, and try to get them the services that they may not know about, resources, coordination, education opportunities, things like that, so they can be independent. So our organization is really tested. So we've had experience doing this kind of project for women veterans. We have a previous pilot program, we had a 97% success rate. So we had a 3-bedroom Asheville apartment complex that we used. There were 3 women vets at a time, and over this time, 36 women veterans were helped. It was operational for about 4 years, but of course the pandemic kind of like closed the door. Only 1 veteran was left with no future housing support due to the program closing, due to COVID. That kind of shut us down because it was congregate, and we had issues with the regulations when COVID happened. So it was a 5-phase program for best outcomes in the shortest time frame, with the average stay about 6 to 9 months. So the Felicia Reeves home. So the program components for this, just so you guys get an idea, we want to provide a secure, safe place to live. We would have on-site security. Life skills. So a lot of these people, they go from their parents' house into the military with minimal life skills. And then they get out of the military, and the military does not teach life skills. Not the ones we want in the community sometimes, okay? Anyway, so a lot of times people don't know how to do a checkbook. They don't know those life skills. So we try to really help them. Financial literacy. So a lot of them are like, I'll go from their parents to a military check to nothing. Employment opportunities. Some of them don't know what their resources are. Education. When I left the military, and I can attest, I know some people, other veterans here, when I left the military, they don't go over what you are due for any kind of support after you're out. It's like, okay, bye-bye, you don't want to be a resource. You know, I don't have, there's nothing, okay? So there's GI Bills. We have this great resource center, basically a mile from where this house is. Accessible by bus, with the resources for the veterans that are in, they don't have to go to Asheville to go to the VA. Okay, what an opportunity. Disability claims, medical assistance, long-term housing, how to find a place, help to move in. There's a lot of assistance. Sometimes people just need a little help. We help with transportation, like medical appointments. A lot of times, if they're afraid to go to the VA, if they've had trauma in the past, they're afraid to go to the VA. So we actually mentor them and support them as they go to their appointments. We also partner with a lot of other agencies to coordinate care, because we're not just all alone. Criteria for residency. This is huge. U.S. military women veterans, proof of service with honorable discharge. Okay, these are the people that have saved our democracy, okay, and have served honorably. They're unsheltered, they're medically stable. No weapons, drugs, alcohol allowed on site or in their vehicles, okay? No outside guests are allowed on site. We've really thought this out to try to make it as safe as possible for them. Referrals, these are some of the referrals we get. We have North Carolina Cares 360, United Way, Veterans Affairs, the North Carolina Coalition to End Homelessness, the BOS R2, and self-referrals. We have a lot of self-referrals. So zoning. So the zoning request for conditional rezoning of a non-conforming building in R10 zone. So the building has been empty for about 12 years. Okay, when we went in, we cleaned everything out. It had medical files and everything. I mean, it was just horrible. It took a long time to clean out. There's a new roof because it was leaking. Downspouts, gutters, electricity. We restored the energy to it. There's an alarm system with cameras because we've had several times people break windows. That's why the windows are boarded up. Fire alarm, exits. We've had the fire department come out and review everything. The plumbing, there were leaking plumbing lines. So funding currently for this home project, currently we have about $105,000 banked, ready to go for the first phase, which would almost totally pay for the first phase. Fundraising events, we have several fundraising events coming. Corporate sponsorships, we have foundation grants, we have for-profit businesses that give to us, we have churches that have given to us, we have individual donors. So we have people that, we also have future funding, so emergency solutions grants, and there's also VA grants and per diem. So we're thinking all the resources that we can possibly get to make this functional. Okay, so these are some of the agencies we collaborate with. So Western North Carolina Source, Safe Light, Thrive, we do Via Health, the Blue Ridge Health Outreach Team, and then the VA Homeless Coordinator. So there's a quote that we saw on planning. The petition is found to be consistent with the City of Hendersonville's 2030 comprehensive plan, adhering to the preservation enhancement area designation for the subject property. The proposal enhances and renovates a long vacant and decaying structure without expanding it, promoting compatibility with the surrounding area. So Hendersonville has a great opportunity here to really prove that it has a veteran-friendly city. We're starting to get a lot more, out of all the 19 counties in Western North Carolina, Henderson County has the second number of veterans, okay, besides Buncombe County. It's a huge amount. And so we have an opportunity here to be a really good resource for veterans in our community. Thank you.
Anyone have questions for Ms. Clark? Questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
I have a question.
Wait, excuse me. Yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry. Ms. Clark,
Yes.
you said you've already started renovation. I mean, I think it's a good idea and some work there. Did you make sure you were in compliance before you did this renovations?
So I'm going to let Alice answer all this because I've only been on the board for a year. So I know a lot of this has been done before me.
Excuse me, I would have done the presentation, but I had a procedure this morning. I'm still slightly sedated. Yes, we went to the city. We asked them, okay, floodplain. And the rule was that you could do up to 50% the value of the building per year. In our discovery, through all this process, we found out that is not FEMA rule. And I didn't know there was a separate administration office that we had to go through floodplain. I was just, okay, we did this much for this year, we're through, next year. But we didn't start renovations, the actual repairing and everything, until February of 2020. I know we purchased the building in December of 2016, but it took us that long to clean it out appropriately and by the law, removing medical waste, medical records, personnel records. They just left everything. It was totally abandoned. And I was confused how it stayed there for 4 years before we bought it. That was like that. And it had been vandalized. That's why the windows were broken. And that's why it was boarded up. It wasn't, yeah, it was how it was when we purchased it. Those windows were boarded up. So we knew we had a project. But we also knew it was a good project for us when we managed to purchase that property for $10,000. That told me we had to go with it. I said, if we buy the building for $10,000, even if we put $600,000 or $700,000 into the building to get it where it needs to be, the value of the property, I mean, property's more than that. We did a 50 FEMA appraisal. They said it was a $610K as it stands. They're the professionals, not me. I just went by what they said. I presented it to the floodplain. They said it was inflated. I said, okay. But but we can't do anything about the floodplain until we get approval from the city here for the rezoning for a non-conforming building in a residential neighborhood. The building's commercial in a residential neighborhood. It's been a problem ever since zoning started. So what do we do with this building? It's just been sitting there decaying. It's blight in the community. It was horrible. We painted it. We put a roof on it. It looks a lot better than it did just 3 years ago. Upon approval, if the city approves the rezoning, we agree to work with the city, Mike Huffman, and I'm so glad that you took those two conditions off, because that's why I denied it when you put it up there, because it isn't part of zoning decision. Okay, the floodplain thing isn't a zoning thing. So that's why I denied it, because I don't feel that was should have been a part of this rezoning piece. And I'll take any other questions.
Any other questions right now?
What is the on-site security?
We have alarm system that's hooked up with Southern Alarm, and if anyone breaks in or the alarms, anyone moves the doors or whatever, the city's police come out. We also have cameras around the whole perimeter of the building to watch what's going on. While in the process, before we got energized and be able to put a security system in there, we had been broken in 13 times. So, and lost a lot of equipment and stuff that we were trying to clean up, and furniture. There was furniture in there that was stolen. Lots of things. So that's why it was an urgency for us to re-energize the building to get a security system in there.
So the on-site security is electronic. That's what you're speaking of?
Yes, yes.
Okay. And another thing that was stated, the veterans there's no medical issues. Clarify, please.
Everyone has medical issues.
Right.
I do too. But they'll be going to the VA hospital or to whatever clinic. We're not going to be actually doing the care there. They'll be going to their appointments. And we're going to have social workers, house manager is going to live there to just manage the house. They're going to have a house director who will be managing their programs, ensuring they make their appointments and whatever it is they need to do. If they have a relapse, say if they're in drug addiction or something, they have relapse, they go back and get detoxed. They have to be detoxed before they come back to us, and we'll just support them in what they need. They have to go NA, AA, they go to whatever church or wherever they're having those meetings. They have to manage themselves, yes, in a lot of ways. But we will be there to support them. And we have numerous programs to get them the social service support that they need.
And you are doing, I think, work with the VA. You'll transport.
Oh, we already work with the VA.
Okay.
This house is kind of like to complete our mission. We've been doing prevention and supporting the women prevention before they lose their house. We really like to catch them there. But if they're unsheltered, this is our opportunity to help them if they're unsheltered, having a house for them to live while we work on our things. Like we said, we had a 97% success rate when we had that 3-bedroom apartment in Asheville. It was unfortunate COVID hit us, and having only one person in a 3-bedroom apartment, that's kind of costly. So
I did have one of you have 2 phases. What's the time frame? Is it a time frame you have, or is it a need?
It's going to be depending on, if we get approved, we go through the floodplain, we would have to raise the building. We don't know what that is. We don't know what the cost analysis is that yet. We just investigating that right now. But we're willing to raise the money, whatever it is that we need to do to make that happen, because that's an ideal place for women to recover from their homelessness.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I applaud you for what you're doing, and I'm all for it. I just think since you don't have that information about if you have to raise the building up, would you consider revisiting this at our September meeting after you've had conversation with other entities? We don't, I don't want you throwing away good money on a bad situation. And because I have been doing some investigating, I know of a facility that had to be rehabbed back in 2005 in Fayetteville, North Carolina, for veteran women. I've contacted that individual. She's willing to talk to you to kind of steer you in the right direction. So would that be a possibility that you could revisit? That's 30 days from now.
Yes, that'd be nice to have that extra time to find the cost analysis and work more with Mike Huffman to find out exactly how much we have to do and where we have to do it. Because we just found out that 3 weeks ago we're told it was a condition for this meeting, and then we just found out that they're not going to accept our FEMA 50 appraisal. So all these things are compounding.
We could still have the public hearing part of it, though.
Yes, ma'am.
And get that, and then follow that and continue the decision.
It would probably be in the best course to go ahead and get all the public comment out of the way, hear all the concerns, and then
Yeah,
you can close.
since people are here tonight.
Yes.
For that, and was advertised.
Yes,
for the
ma'am.
Public hearing.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay. All right, public hearing was opened last month and continued, so we're set with that. So I will go down the list here of folks who have signed up to speak. Sandra Bernard, and if you would come again, just repeat your name and give your address for the clerk's record, please.
Sure, Sandra Bernard, 861 Sunlight Ridge Drive. And good evening. I'm Sandy Bernard, and I'm the president of the AUW Hendersonville branch. AUW is a national organization that's been around for 143 years, and our branch has been around in Hendersonville, serving Hendersonville for 47 years. Our mission is to focus on women and girls, equity and education for women and girls. So I'm here tonight to present a letter to you esteemed Hendersonville City Council members. This letter is written on behalf of the members of the Hendersonville branch of AAUW in support of the efforts of Aura Home for Veteran Women in their efforts to secure the property at 1744 Meadowbrook Court as a transitional residence for American women veterans. Our organization has supported this effort both philosophically and financially in the past and continues to do so moving forward. We look to the leadership of the city of Hendersonville to follow us in expediting their admirable work in any and all ways at your disposal. Our female veterans served their country, and now it's our turn to serve transitioning female veterans who live in our backyard. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bernard. Lisa Clark, did you want to add anything more? Okay. You're okay with that. And Alice Knopfler, anything you want to add at this point? Okay. Jennifer, is it Bihar?
Hi, my name is Jennifer Bihar. I live at 23 Old Oak Hill Road, Candler, North Carolina. And in order to tell you why I'm here supporting Alice for the Aura home, I have to tell you where I've been. I am a United States Marine Corps combat veteran, and I struggled with homelessness, and I met Alice. Alice gave me a place to live. I was able to get my children back. I was able to get a job and keep it. I was able to become a peer support specialist, and today I help other veterans. I'm a certified alcohol and drug counselor, and I work at Crossroads Methadone Clinic, and I also work at the Charles George VA. I have started the first female peer-led women's group, and I have 47 women veterans that I actively invite every Friday. I am currently enrolled in Walden University in order to become a social worker. And my ultimate goal is to become a doctor of social work so that I can continue to learn more and help more. Without people like Alice, I wouldn't be here. I was incarcerated 14 times between January of 2018 and May of 2018. And now I'm productive. I have all 4 of my children back. I have my nephew who lives with me, and I support them solely on my own because of heroes like Alice. Thank you.
Thank you. Patricia Garrity?
Mayor, I just wanted to ask a procedural question. At the meeting in September, would the public be able to speak at that time as well? If so, I'll defer my comments at this time.
I was not planning on that. I was planning on just having the public hearing this evening.
I mean, I think typically we would close the public hearing, so if you wanted to speak, I mean, that's totally
Yeah, it would be up to council if you wish to continue the public hearing till September, or if we should close it this evening.
Just simply mean in
Would be
terms of
your
changed conditions at that time. That might be helpful. It's up to you.
So what, are you willing to continue public hearing? Would you rather just close it tonight?
Yeah, I say in all honesty,
Okay.
yeah, we may have something change significantly and
Yeah.
keep it open. Yeah.
All right, so we will do that when we're through then.
Thank you so very much.
Sandra Cameron?
I'm Sandra Cameron, 1741 Meadowbrook Terrace. I live across the street from the proposed change. Figure out how to use my phone. Okay, so we purchased our home in 2015 and have been enjoying raising our 3 children here. We also purchased our home in a residential neighborhood, expecting it to stay that way. Having the Felicia Reeves home come in is going to uproot that lifestyle, and we don't have the means to move. I have 3 small children and a husband battling stage 4 cancer. This event has increased our already high stress level, and it's not good for his health mostly. If this gets approved for rezoning, we will have to deal with a constant state of high stress as we watch our neighborhood disappear. Druid Hills is an old historic neighborhood, and allowing the zoning change is going to ruin it. They say they will have security 24/7 to keep the riffraff out, and the only place riffraff will go is in the street in front of our house and possibly onto our property. And we have to further protect our children from this riffraff. Another thing to consider is the increase in traffic, which is very real, and we shouldn't have to deal with that in a residential neighborhood. I find it really unfair that we've been put in this position when there's plenty of other options in business districts to do this type of facility. It will be a constant flow of changing people coming in and out, and we will never know what to expect, which leaves us to believe our safety will always be in jeopardy. I don't understand how such a thing can be allowed. Does this mean that I can go into any residential neighborhood and decide to rezone it because I want to open up a business that suits me and others that want to use my business, but does not suit the neighborhood? To me, this seems a very backwards and unfair way of thinking. We pay our taxes every year, city and county, to support the city, and to turn around and treat your citizens this way is truly unjust. I beg you all from the bottom of my heart to truly consider how this will affect all residences on this street. One major oversight has been the requirement to raise the entire building by, I think, 3 feet and get it out of the flood zone, and they've made no motions to do such a thing. And I believe they're trying to work around that requirement by stretching out the work over numerous years, which is truly unfair to our neighborhood. If rules are put in place, shouldn't they be followed no matter how good someone's intentions are? Please take this into consideration and don't allow this building to inhabit multiple people who will likely have to evacuate when it gets flooded. And also discussions of a sidewalk being put in. I want to first and foremost make sure that that doesn't end up on our side of the street. It definitely needs to be on their side of the street where there's plenty of unused land. And another thing, I'm not sure if this perks any ears, but the sidewalk going to the bus stop, where the bus stop sits, is pretty much in the parking lot of the Harvest Streams cannabis shop. So you have that entity there close by a home of people who are trying to remain alcohol and drug-free. But you have, every day you turn on the street and it's right there on the corner. I feel like that's a conflict of interest and not a positive aspect for this project. So I don't know what the fix is, but I feel like there's other options in Hendersonville that a property like this would be more successful and possibly finding a less rundown building. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Cameron. Okay, that was the end of the list here. Is there anyone else present who would wish to speak? Okay. If you will give your name and address for the clerk's record, please.
My name's Rita Thornton. Well, Rita Cruz. I just got married. I live at 8 Mountain Country Acres in Fairview. I lived in a home in Asheville for 10 years. The year I met Alice, she saved me. I just had my leg amputated, and my landlord told me 3 weeks before I was supposed to sign my lease that he was not going to let me live there anymore. In 3 weeks, I could not find someplace to live, especially being in a wheelchair. I was one of the ones that lived in the apartment before Aura Homes was built, and it was very safe. We never had any problems. I mean, Alice was a saint, you know. I couldn't even get into ABCCM because they were not handicap accessible at that time. And Alice let me come in there. I stayed there probably 5 months. And with her help, I ended up, now I live in a home that I own. I have learned to help with different organizations. I help with Aura Homes. I'm a treasurer of a nonprofit. 501c3 now. You know, I've come a long ways, you know. And I think, you know, I understand people's concerns. But a lot of us aren't addicts. You know, we are just recovering. We need help sometimes. Because like the one young lady said, when we get out of the military, we don't know anything. We go in as babies, we're not taught nothing, and we have to figure how to live. And this is one lady that is doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here who wishes to speak? Yes, sir.
And Mayor,
Yes.
just so you know, there's Ken Fitch online.
I will get to that one too.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure you knew.
Yeah. Again, if you could give your name and address, please.
Yes, my name is Lauren Stern, 150 Season Circle in Fletcher. This is so totally unplanned, just inspired. I speak to the council and everybody here in attendance, but especially to the ladies of our house. I've really been inspired by them tonight and for years. I'm a veteran of the Army myself, have my own story of recovery, homelessness, the whole bit. They helped me through a lot of it. I've been able to help them, luckily, through many years. We've got a relationship of many years together supporting each other. I'm a peer support myself like Jennifer. Rita's relationship with me, she's the treasurer of my nonprofit. I work with veterans through a suicide hotline as well as my peer support. But working with the female veterans, what I hear a lot is they don't feel heard. A lot of times they deal with military sexual trauma. There's a lot of trust issues. And what I hear from a lot of the female veterans is, I'm not a veteran. I don't deserve the title of veteran. I didn't serve. I don't feel heard in the veteran community. And it is so frustrating for me to hear that. It really bothers me. That's why when Alice started this for the female veterans, it gives them that voice. So needed in the community. And I hear from a lot of the male veterans, well, why did they get their own? It's because it's needed. That's why. And I appreciate so much you guys doing this. And I look around to all the purple shirts, and there's so many more that's not wearing the purple shirts that are here. And I've kind of become their groupie, follow them around. I'm the male veteran in the group that I've kind of become their groupie, and I kind of like that idea. So I'm saying this to you guys, how important this is that they're doing this. And I really like seeing the progression of this coming, and I really hope this comes to fruition. And I'm really excited for them. And I know I'm not going to sway any votes here by saying this tonight. Really, what I'm saying this for is so you guys know, you guys have the support of the veteran community out there. If not anywhere else, the veteran community, and we're behind you.
Is there anyone else here who wishes to speak? Yes.
They told me I'd have 30 seconds to prepare. My name's Wanda Schwer. I live at 300 Winding Meadows in Flat Rock. I am on the board of Aura Home. I came to the board via Daughters of the American Revolution, the Abraham Kuykendall chapter. One of the things that I have, my chapter of DAR actually supports Aura Home very significantly. And I recently met the state chair for the Veteran Services for the North Carolina chapter of DAR, and she's going to work with us to support Aura Home. There's a lot of organizational support for this organization, and I just wanted to make sure that I got my name in for that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Okay, if you could, we have someone online. You could call them.
Yes. Ken Fitch, you're unmuted.
And Fitch, 1046 Patton Street. This project arrives as an extraordinary commitment and a remarkable act of personal mission to serve the needs of our veterans, who deserve the highest level of care and appreciation. We are a city of veterans and hold their service in special regard and strive to provide them with honor and support. And we should expect any entity to provide our veterans with the highest levels of care and service. The specific questions here are the ability to responsibly realize this extraordinary mission at this specific location, constantly aware of the funding issues for such an operation, and to provide all the necessary services at this location, in a family neighborhood, and in a floodplain. And there are serious concerns that must be considered. We know and have discussed at these city gatherings, including tonight, the complexity of issues that afflict our homeless population. And we know that veterans have a range of service-related conditions that affect their lives and the others with whom they interact in their families or in the community. And we know the need for specialized care is enormous, but we also know that our care provision systems are overwhelmed and understaffed. And an entity like this demands the highest level of service provision. I know during previous meetings there have been numerous questions about the management and functions of the facility, and I apologize for delving into such details, but these operational details become critical to understand and evaluate when you are locating this facility in a family neighborhood, where the location and operation of a facility does entail ethical responsibility to the safety and welfare of its neighbors. And the neighbors have expressed serious concerns during the process that need to be considered and in our awareness. For example, lapses happen. That's real. And there are triggers that occur. I mean, is the bus stop a trigger zone? The unknowns here are unsettling. They're upsetting for people who live in the neighborhood and are raising families in what are difficult times for everyone. Also, inescapably, we in the city are reminded, sometimes on a monthly, weekly, or daily basis, of the severe, disruptive, and sometimes frightening impacts of flooding. So the prospect of placing an important facility for a vulnerable population such as this in a floodplain must give us pause. The neighbors have testified to the reality of the conditions here. The testimonies and assessments about the conditions of the site are alarming, and city staff have offered important conditions, but withdrawn. But when Mike Huffman speaks, we listen. But the reality is that the remedy for the situation may require substantial funds. Well, what happens if the project cannot comply with the applicable floodplain requirements? I mean, what are the options then? That is something in the air. But it becomes clear that to place an important care facility such as this at this location may indeed require substantial capital and operational financial reserves going forward to address the issues of the site and its functioning. And so some will consider the wisdom of even citing a facility at a location like this. And there's a looming question. Should any entity of this size and density be located on this flood zone. Surely another location and neighborhood would be more appropriate and sustainable to realize the worthy goals and mission of the project. Obviously, any blockage that occurs for this dedicated applicant would precipitate a delay in the journey. But perhaps an alternative will offer a better pathway for the wondrous aura to truly glow. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fitch. Is there anyone else online seeking recognition? No.
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Thank you. We have a motion to continue this public hearing and the conditional rezoning till next meeting.
Actually, to your September meeting.
Yeah.
September meeting, yes.
Mhm. Okay. Is there any discussion? If not, those in favor of continuing the public hearing and the discussion on the conditional zoning for the Felicia Reeves home, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Ayes have it. All right. Continue that as unfinished business at the September meeting. Okay. Okay, we do have some more business, but anyone who would like to leave may leave. Okay. Okay, first Thursday. Excuse me.
You're not coming here? I'm sorry.
It's gonna be great. I could do it. I could do it. Because I can continue commentation as well.
Huh?
We continued commenting as well.
Continue to.
We'll be able to comment.
Yeah.
Oh, continue commenting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, didn't know the word you were saying. I thought you were saying commenting. I'm like, what is this word you're saying? I don't know this word.
Okay.
Just like
All
that.
right. Yeah. All right. The next item is a partial ETJ relinquishment for CMH Homes, Inc.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this is a different request than you all normally see on city council. So you all have not seen a similar request since 2017. So the Community Development Department has received a request from CMH Homes Incorporated to remove 2.52 acres from the city's ETJ. The city is authorized to do this, or authorized to adopt and relinquish ETJ per General Statute 160D-202. Subject parcel is 7.86 acres in total and is located on Stony Mountain Road. A portion of the parcel fronting on Stony Mountain Road is located in the city's ETJ and is zoned R20 low density residential. The remaining portion of the subject property is located in Henderson County zoning and is zoned R1. So the owner has indicated that it plans to develop the property as a 9-lot residential subdivision that has been preliminary approved by Henderson County Planning. With the current ETJ boundary, the property would have to be required to meet city zoning and subdivision standards for the portion of the property that is within our ETJ, including but not limited to the connection to city water and sewer. Due to existing water pressure and the distance from public sewer, the developer stated that it is not feasible to serve the entire subject property with city water and sewer. If the city decides to relinquish the ETJ for this property, Henderson County Board of Commissioners will have 60 days from the effective date of the ordinance to amend the ETJ and adopt their zoning regulations, so similar to our annexation process. And I'm happy to answer any questions y'all may have.
Any questions? Okay. Madam Clerk, has this public hearing been advertised in accordance with general statutes?
Yes, Mayor, it has.
All right, and we open the public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak regarding this partial ETJ relinquishment? Anyone who wishes to speak? Yes, sir.
My name's Derek Vicks. I am a representative of CMH Homes. I just really want to open up if you guys had any questions for me in regard to this. We did have a hydrant flow test done by the Hendersonville Water, and we paid for them to do a pressure test, and they were the ones that told us that due to the elevation and distance off the road, they wouldn't be able to supply water except for to maybe, they said possibly 2 houses, but they couldn't guarantee that they would be able to get all 2 houses in there.
Okay. Any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vick. Anyone else wish to speak? Okay. Is there anyone online seeking recognition?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Well, in that case, we will close that public hearing. Council?
Madam Mayor, I move the City Council adopt an ordinance amending the ordinance establishing extraterritorial jurisdiction boundaries for the City of Hendersonville as presented.
Is there any discussion? Not. Those in favor of the partial relinquishment, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Ayes have it, motion carries, and that is taken care of. All right. Unfinished business. Excuse me. Ordinance to adopt the Gen H 2045 Comprehensive Plan.
Madam Mayor, members of council, good evening. I come to you this evening with with the culmination of over a year's worth of work, many meetings, lots of listening, lots of reading, lots of tweaking, and I'm going to go through this briefly. Most of it's been covered at your workshop, but did want to just go over again. Once we received the draft plan at the end of May, we began a process of putting it out for public review, sending it to boards, taking feedback, and really going through it with a fine-tooth comb, marking it up, providing feedback, and consolidating a set of revisions that were sent back to the consultant. Most of those were non-substantive and, in general revisions. And so wanted to note that. Some were more specific. And so one that you're familiar with that we talked about briefly at the workshop was this update to the land supply map, where we distinguished vacant land from underdeveloped land or underutilized land, and then the constrained properties, both vacant and underdeveloped. And so we have that breakdown in numbers. Previously, we just had kind of a general, your land supply is 3,832 acres. It didn't distinguish between vacant and underdeveloped. It also didn't, qualify those that were encumbered by the floodplain. So those totals are in here now, and it does paint a more thorough picture of how much land is actually available for the city to develop, especially when you start looking at those vacant numbers, which is, the lowest. Vacant, unconstrained is your lowest hanging fruit and most likely to develop the quickest, and it's not as widespread as maybe the previous picture that was painted. So that has been included. Tree canopy assessment and strategic housing plan has been added to both the policy review in the main body of the plan, and then also a full section in the appendix related to the tree canopy assessment and our tree coverage numbers, and those have been updated, and it is specific to the city. The open space description under open space conservation 2, natural OS-C2. This language was in there. We did amend it slightly, especially if you look at the upper portion of the second column. it stated that though some development can be supported in these areas, we've added that would include redevelopment when floodplain function is maintained or improved, and new development with limited impacts which improve use of site. So kind of clarifying what that development could potentially look like in the floodplain, but then continuing to emphasize that most uses are going to be associated with access to protected open space in that area. I went over the changes to the flume at the workshop, and so I'm not going to go into detail with each of those, but there have been a couple of additions, but these should look familiar to you. And I know there was a question earlier about the multi-generational living kind of in the area near Chadwick. We did push back on the mixed-use commercial in that area and incorporated transition to multi-generational living. And
Matt, what that does is, just want to correct, is by doing that is actually encouraging more protection of that existing neighborhood.
Yes.
Is that correct? I mean,
That's correct.
The change that was made was to actually hearing from the public and basically taking their concerns for encroachment into a residential and changing it so that it did provide that protection.
That is 100% correct.
Thank you.
It was in response to feedback we had gotten from the public, and we made a change to protect the neighborhood. One of the changes that we made since last week was kind of going through with fine-tooth comb again. We found some neighborhoods that had some split designation, and so we made sure those splits were corrected and brought all those areas under the same character area designation. And also all the little small green space / parks that the city owns around town, we went through and made sure those were labeled as open space. Rotary Park, Tom's Park, Fred's Park, those little small pieces.
And one other direct correction there, make sure that the public is aware, and we're on the record, that the area along Oak Street, 9th Avenue, which was a historically African-American neighborhood, had previously been designated as institutional, has now been changed to residential, I believe, which then also is our belief that we can protect that neighborhood a little bit more from encroachment from institutional uses. Does not prevent it 100%, as does any of this, but it makes the council have to make a conscious decision to rezone any property in that neighborhood for institutional purposes. So
that is correct. And this shows that revised map. So in particular, what the city manager was referencing is this was previously institutional. It's now been changed to multi-generational living to provide that security for some of those existing neighborhoods to some degree. Any possible change of land use is possible through our rezoning process, but this is the vision that we're putting forward for adoption today. And yeah, if there are any other specific areas that you're curious about, we can zoom in on them here. But this is now the revised final future land use and conservation map, which is heavily referred to when we do our comp plan consistency statements. As you've heard some of those tonight, we're really starting with this document and then the descriptions of those character areas and evaluating whether the proposal is consistent with the description or not. We also had removed the large circles, the large activity centers. Those have been retooled as focused intensity nodes, and they've been placed on a separate map, a very stripped down map that really just shows you where those nodes are and where we are saying as a city we want to concentrate our growth and look for opportunities in those areas for increased density, increased walkability, potential recreation, transit opportunities, things of that nature. If you move to adopt this, it will be by an ordinance, and you should have that language in your cover sheet. I'm going to go ahead and go through to the next item as well, which is the short-term implementation.
Matt, before you do,
project.
can I ask you one question?
Yes.
Earlier in the public comment, there was a reference to the focus areas, particularly the one around Blue Ridge Mall.
Yes.
Just want to be, correct me if I'm wrong, just want to clarify that that is not a plan that the city is putting forward. It is just an example of how you may redevelop property. Does not change anything that is existing there today, does not encourage it. I mean, it just shows what could happen with the right development that may provide provision. So it's just an example of what may occur, not what is going to occur. So I don't want any public that's listening to say that this is going to occur. This would require active engagement by a private property owner and private development. The city is not putting forth any plan to do this. This would require the private sector to engage it, but this is what it could potentially look like.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
It is one way that that area could possibly develop or redevelop. It puts forward a number of the guiding principles that are also outlined in the plan. It says if you utilize these guiding principles, this is what a future development could potentially look like. We're just trying to paint a picture for people to kind of understand what the vision is if you applied it in one of 1,000 scenarios. So it is not something that we're actively working to try to implement through any means other than painting a picture and a potential vision. Thank you for clarifying that. The short-term implementation project list, this is was provided to you previously. The Chapter 6 of the comp plan is our implementation plan, and it outlines 77 different projects, specific actions that the city can initiate to implement all of the goals that are outlined in the plan. As a strategy, we've pulled out 34 of those 77 projects and prioritized them and put them in a separate document that is a standalone document. And these 34 projects represent the first 1 to 2 to 3 years after adoption. These are the projects that we prioritized that we have said are kind of the low-hanging fruit that we should pursue. And the reason why it's standalone is as we pursue those, circumstances may change. We may accomplish some. We may move some new projects onto the list. And we want that to be a standalone document that we can edit without having to do a full-scale amendment of the comprehensive plan. So this portion would be adopted or put forward and supported by a resolution. And you've got that in your cover sheet as well. And then I'll open it up for any questions.
Questions? Yes, you covered it.
Mayor, one thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is always open for changes down the line. I mean, this isn't like, this is the way it's going to be for, now till the next one's done. This thing, and it has every opportunity to be changed, directions flipped.
And it is a guide.
Good Lord willing, someday all the municipalities and governments can get along and maybe work them together. So that being the case.
And I think if Ms. Beaker was here, she would say that, under the new 60D legislation that was adopted in the last 5 years, specifically lays out that when you're rezoning and making change, is that the council has the ability to make the decision and make changes to your comprehensive plan. It is a living, breathing document. And, as circumstances and conditions change, the city council can make changes to your comprehensive plan. But this is a guide and a vision as we see it today. But that vision could change tomorrow. So it is clearly that vision and that guide. And the state law under 160D specifically speaks to that it is, and it takes into account that councils change, vision change, conditions change, and they can be, as projects come along, as those conditions, it can be and will be amended. It's expected to be amended. So.
Holly?
Jeff, your question offered an opportunity just to highlight that that's something that we really have talked a lot about internally, that we want to make sure that the document and the buy-in and the understanding of the document remain as bright as it is right after adoption. So we really will be looking for things that we don't think align any longer and bringing that to council on some sort of regular basis. So, Matt and I have had conversations along with other staff about that and really wanting to keep that so that it's not just a document that's on the shelf, but one that is living and breathing and that we're using to guide our decision-making as we move forward.
Okay. All right. Right. Thank you.
If I may add real quickly, while I have the mic, because I'm not going to let Lou talk last.
You're winning. You're winning.
I want to say in my nearly 20-year career, this is one of the most major projects that I've worked on. And so it's been an honor to have been tasked with it and to be able to work through this process with you. And I greatly appreciate all the support and engagement that you all have brought to it, and a number of other people, especially our communications team, incredible lift by them. So a lot of thank yous go out to a lot of people to pull this off in the timeline we've done it. And I hope you feel that it's an honor and a privilege to sit on this council during a time when we're going through such an important plan and to be able the ones to put it into motion. So let's see, John's looking at his watch there, so wrap it up. I just wanted to add those comments.
I'm just, no, I was not looking at my watch. I actually was getting, which I very rarely get, compliments from the city attorney. She's complimenting, so I had to look at it. So there you go.
This big process, we have two motions, one regarding the plan and one regarding the project list. So who wants to start? Big.
Are we ready?
Big plan.
Madam Mayor, I move City Council adopt the Gen H 2045 Comprehensive Plan as presented.
Period.
Period.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Not. Those in favor of adopting the Gen H 2045 Comprehensive Plan as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Ayes have it. Motion is adopted, and we have our new plan. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Did it.
Good job, Matt.
Go, Matt.
All right. Project list.
Madam Mayor, I move City Council adopt a resolution accepting the list of short-term implementation projects table associated with the Gen H Comprehensive Plan with a recommendation that the Planning Board and City Manager review any changes to the priority list.
Is there any discussion? Not. Those in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Ayes have it. Motion carries, and we have that part of it taken care of too.
Well done.
Thank you, thank you. All of that. All right. So we can look for a slightly different presentation when we have our rezonings, and that it'll be modified to reflect the new plan.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you. New business, Saluda Water System Merger Study Update.
Yes, just real briefly, Mayor Volk, members of City Council, we have previously reported that Saluda is, the City of Saluda has received a grant to look at considering merging their water system with the City of Hendersonville simply for efficiency and looking at ways to reduce cost of water for their customers. We're still a long way away from going through that process, but they're foreseeing some changes in their governing board in the next few months. One of their longstanding members who's been a champion of this project is retiring, and they've requested that City Council appoint 2 City Council members to sit down with that longstanding member and one other member of their board just to talk about how we got to this point, what their priorities are, what their interests are, as we go through the process just for continuity's sake. So simply asking today to appoint 2 city council members to meet with the folks in the city of Saluda over the next several months as we continue to develop this merger analysis and plan. So just ask for 2 members, please.
Okay. Any volunteers for this?
Jen Hensley.
Okay. Anyone else?
I'll give it a shot if you'd like.
We do that? Okay. So we have 2 people are willing to serve. Is there anyone in addition who wishes to throw their name in there?
I believe I should make sure Melinda's okay with that. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Well, we have, it has been moved that council members Hensley and Miller be appointed, and that council member Lawrence also be the alternate for meeting with the city of Saluda to discuss their their draft water system merger study. Are there any additional nominations? Not, those in favor of the members listed say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Ayes have it, and, okay. Thank you for being willing to do that. All right, council, anything you'd like to bring up?
I have one very exciting thing, if anybody's interested. Saturday evening, I will be in the dunk tank again at Oklawaha for charity, so you can pay a little bit of money if you would like to dunk me. It will be sometime after 5 p.m. because I have to finish working first, but when I have that time, I'll let everybody know.
Well, I'm going to be
Well.
You're good.
right around the same time as you, I believe.
Oh, good. Then we can dunk each other.
Each other.
Okay, anything else? Not city manager report?
Just real briefly, Mayor, Vogt, members of City Council, included in your packet are our July 2024 contingency and adjustment reports for your review at your leisure. Also included from John Buchanan is your cash and investment report, again, for your review. No need for approval, just included in there. One quick announcement for the City Council and the public is we're having a Parks and Green Space Master Plan public input meeting. We invite the community to an input session on the draft Parks and Green Space Master Plan. It will be Monday, the 12th, August 12th, from 5 to 6:30. Again, Monday, August 12th, from 5 to 6:30 at the Public Library on Washington Street. Our consultants design workshop will kick off the meeting with a short presentation, followed by discussion where community members are invited to give their feedback. In addition to that meeting, the Public Works Department will be collecting virtual feedback through a survey that will be posted on the city's website in mid-August. So finishing up that plan, but there's a great opportunity for public feedback and input on the 12th at the library or online through mid-August. Again,
Okay.
What time did you say?
5 to 6:30.
Anything else?
August 12th.
Okay. All right. Well, we are at the end of the agenda, and we are adjourned.